I want to say Happy New Year before we start. That was a tough loss, but very projectable, very predictable. And I got to tell you, I got some things I want to get off my chest. This has been a very weird 24 hours. That video I made, it was coming from a very, very frustrated place. I am sick of watching something and seeing it for what it is and turning on the newspaper or turning on the television and being and hearing it called something completely different and having people say that I'm being a hater, that I'm being unreasonable, that I'm being a homer, or I'm, a Scottie stan or something. Man, if you watch tonight and you can't see the difference in like mental processing, if you watch tonight and you couldn't predict that the second that man came back into the game, that this game was over, if you did not see that every single time he left every time he left the floor, they went on a run. Every time Scottie was on the court, they were on a run. What is it with a coaching staff that cannot stick to what is working? I have no problem on a night where Scottie Barnes is not playing well that you bench him. I have no problem with that. He may be my favorite player in the NBA, but I don't care. Is it about winning or is it about something else? Because if it's about something else, then tell me so I can just check out. I don't understand this. It's not even debatable whether the Raptors were better or worse tonight with Fred VanVleet on the court. It's not even debatable. This is not me hating. This is not me throwing shade. Watch the tape. I haven't even watched the tape. I watched this game once. I don't know how I'm going to bring myself to watch it again. But this was a winnable game. And if I can see that, you don't think the other players can see that? You don't think that there are players on that bench who can see that? Let's talk about some positives first. I loved Scottie Barnes' game tonight. Yeah, he came out. He wasn't looking at the rim. A lot of people were saying like, "Oh, why doesn't he want to score?" And then you keep hearing it like, "Oh, Scottie's not looking up at he's not looking up the rim. He's not looking up at the rim." And I'm like, "Yeah, because he knows who's coming back into the lineup, and he knows that person's not looking to pass ever." And as these guys are complaining about, "Oh, he's not looking at the rim. He's not looking at the rim," you just see the score going up, up, up. Oh, it's 17-13. Oh, it's 23-15. It's 20. I'm like, oh wow, the Raptors are really winning with this scrub who doesn't want to score on the court. That must be some miracle, you know? And then he goes to the bench and the lead evaporates. He comes back, they build up a lead again. Goes to the bench, lead evaporates. Comes back. Damn. I don't buy too much into plus minus, but tonight, whatever Scottie Barnes plus minus is, and we're going to look at the stats, he deserved it. He played amazing. Christian Koloko, great effort. Great effort. Great way to follow up a good moment with a good moment. I really liked how he competed. Precious Achiuwa, rusty as hell, obviously. Tried to give it a go. Loved some of the defensive possessions. OG Anunoby, kind of up and down game, obviously. Kind of not really sure where his offense is coming from sometimes. Air balls at three. Tough. Little tough. Gary Trent Jr. Brilliant. Brilliant game from Gary Trent Jr. I love that pass that he had to Scottie Barnes. He is really growing on me, guys. I can't believe I'm saying that, but look, I am somebody who is willing to change as people change. You change, I can change. Okay? I don't mean to sound like Rocky in Rocky 4, but that's just a fact. I was not high on Benedict Mathurin coming out of college. I straight up thought he was going to be so bad. I was rooting for him today. When he stood up to OG Anunoby, I was like, damn, great stuff. When he chirped at Jamal McGlure, I'm like, this kid's going to be really good. I love that he did that. And the minute he did that, the energy of this game turned around. Truth be told, if you've ever played basketball, that term, don't poke the bear, it does ring true, right? Because there was exactly one person on this team who was really willing to dial up that energy. To be honest, two, three. OG, Scottie, Gary. Those guys met that intensity that the Pacers started to pick up with their own intensity. You meet force with force, and they met it with force. Did you see how Scottie was guarding Benedict Mathurin after that altercation? It became personal. Benedict Mathurin couldn't breathe. He was going off, and he couldn't shake him. It was incredible, and it was personal at that point. He had pushed OG, and you do not push OG without having a big problem with Scottie Barnes, and I love that. I love that he stood up for his teammate there. Malachi Flynn, even when he was going well, I always caution. He is not the second best point guard on this team. He is not the third best point guard on this team. Jeff Dowtin Jr. deserves minutes. Does not deserve to be an afterthought and forgotten just because he's a two-way contract. If anything else, if the Raptors can't find something in the free agent heap, I would convert that guy yesterday. He's really good. And it's kind of shocking me that this coaching staff does not seem to understand that. Every single time he's come onto the court for you this season, he's been incredible. That's not hard. That's not easy to do, but he has been. Pascal Siakam, I'm not going to say anything. It is what it is at this point, right? He's gonna flail about. He's gonna get some, he's gonna get some calls. He's gonna have some good performances, some bad performances. There's gonna be some nice box score stuff, and you're not gonna be able to say boo, right? But impact, bro. I'm gonna tell you something. I don't wanna start this year out on a negative note. And I do want to say that I have come a very long way on Pascal Siakam since the start of the year. Start of the year, I thought it was a fringe top 20, top 25 player. And right now, I'm firmly I could buy him as a top 15, 17 player. But there are levels to this. So when I hear Toronto fans yelling MVP for him at home, simmer down. MVPs don't usually end up on teams that are 4 or 5 games under 500. That's just not how it works. There's a lot about scoring inflation. We're going to get into it. At some point this year, we're going to go deep dive into scoring inflation so you can see how many possessions used to be in a game in 1997, 98, 2004, and how many possessions there are now, and how much that impacts what you see as 25, 6, and 7, or 25, 7, and 8. This morning, last night, I worked on a video. I released it. It's fire. I love it. I do. I'm very proud of it. And it's calling out Josh Lewenberg for this bullshit quote that this bullshit tweet that he put out about Scottie Barnes. These people are making it really hard for me to want to even watch these games without actually feeling sick. What they're doing is it goes beyond stupidity. It goes beyond ignorance. It's straight out starting to border on corruption at this point. How they cover certain things. A few weeks ago, in the midst of some of his struggles, Scottie Barnes had put up several negative box plus minus performances. Box plus minus game to game is a pretty useless stat, but didn't stop Josh Lewenberg from going after him, saying, hey, he's the only Raptor that's more than this, and he's negative every single game. He doesn't cover Fred VanVleet's bad games like that. Here's the thing. I am not pretending that Scottie Barnes is not my favorite player. I'm not pretending that OG Anunoby is not one of my favorite players. I'm not pretending that Jeff Dowtin Jr. is not one of my favorite players. I'm clear about my biases. I am clear that I love Christian Koloko and that I would not want to see him traded. I am not completely objective about some of these players because, there's some emotion involved when you root for guys every single night. There are certain players on this team that I really like. Otto Porter Jr. does not feel to me how he must feel to some of you. To me, it's a lifelong obsession with this type of player that I just absolutely love. I love Thaddeus Young. There's so many players on this team that I stand by and vouch for. And then there's certain players on this team that I can't stand watching. I can be fair about them. I can tell you that they had a good game when they have a good game. Fred VanVleet's had good games this year. Pascal Siakam's had a ton of good games this year. Gary Trent Jr. is actually turning me around at this point. But I am not covering on the national media. I am not someone who is writing for the Toronto Star. I do not have that type of platform. When you come and to watch a Pensari basketball game, half of you probably think I'm absolutely crazy. The other half probably just think I'm a very passionate fan that just has a particular vision for how basketball ought to be played. But the reality of the situation is I am not pretending to be 1000% objective. I'm not being anybody's friend. I don't have a press pass on the line. I'm not playing favorites. I'm not a politician. I'm just calling it how I see it. And there are certain people who just play a brand of basketball that makes my eyes want to bleed. And tonight, one of them came back. Fred VanVleet. There are quotes that this guy has given that make me mad, to be honest. The way this guy talks about himself. He used up all his bullets in training camp. That's what he said, right? He's a leader. He reminds us every single night. Okay. I happen to have some insight into the fact that Fred VanVleet may, on occasion, check out a Pinsari basketball video. So here's my message to Fred VanVleet. If you are a leader, go to the bench. Sit down. If you are a leader and winning matters to you, and when you're having a night like this where you can't stay in front of anybody, where you can't guard at the rim, where you don't match up with their bigger guards, where your shot's not falling, where you can't create, where you're tossing balls out of bounds, when you're having a night like this and you are an absolute net negative and you refuse to stop shooting, go to the bench. If you're a real leader, you would do that. If you are a real leader, you would not stand next to Scottie Barnes when he has a clear advantage in transition and demand that he give you the ball. That's not what real leaders do. How about this? You're a real leader? Stop telling us in every single interview that you're a leader. Final thing I want you to do. I want you to tell your friends in the media that you're super cozy with, all these people that you've spent like 4 years, 5 years building up these cozy little relationships with, leaking little bits and pieces. I'm going to tell you this directly. Stop doing it. I see your relationships, man. I see it. And I see exactly their talking points are your talking points. It's never surprised me that everything Josh Lewenberg, Michael Grange, and Doug Smith say, it's exactly what you say. Now, unless y'all are sharing the same brain, I'm finding that kind of hard to believe that these three numbnuts who don't understand basketball happen to think about basketball exactly the same way you do, because I know you understand basketball. So how are they arriving at the same conclusions you are? That's kind of weird to me. I feel bad for players who play the right way in a system like this, watching a winnable game. Now, I don't care if you're selfish or not selfish. Nobody wants to lose a game that was in your hands, where you were up 10, where you guarded your... How hard did Scottie Barnes play tonight? How hard did Gary Trent play? Like, how hard did these dudes have to play for Nick Nurse to be like, no, I got to go back to my guys. I got to go back to my guys. I won a championship with those guys. They're not the same guys. Not the same guys anymore. I am sick of watching this shit, man. You are so clearly playing favorites because, man, if Malachi Flynn had a game like Fred VanVleet had tonight, he would not see the court for the rest of his life. That's the truth. Can you be real about that? I don't want to see another Fred VanVleet presser where he's like, oh, I got to be better. As a leader, I got to be better. No, bro, you got to go to the bench if you're so great, right? And there's another YouTuber out there who I'm not going to name because I'm not going to give him the dignity, but who has just been on an irritating tirade. 20 videos a day, 30 videos a day. Bro, you're saying the same thing over and over and over, just recycling the same takes over and over. I see 206 comments. I'm not looking at any of them. I'm just going into my zone right now. As my contemporary would say, I'm going into my bag. And you're just trying to take digs at Scottie when this dude does nothing but play the right way and just does nothing but try to win. Bro, he was going so hard. That video that I showed you, I got exhausted editing that. I'm like, how much more of this is there? How many more times can I see a guy get punched in the face, go up for an offensive rebound, get punched in the back? And yo, I took the high road on that because there's a lot of his teammates in that game that didn't play 1/10 as hard as he did. You don't see a low light video from me. I told you guys I'm going to keep it on the high road, but you guys keep going low. You keep doing this shit. You keep making these videos. You keep regurgitating the same stupid ass points. And it's getting really frustrating. This loss is stupid. It's stupid. It was completely preventable. Just keep the guy on the bench. That's all it was. You think I'm lying? Go watch the tape. Go watch how this team played. Go watch how fast they played. And then you got Alvin Williams. Man, Alvin Williams, what are you talking about? The Raptors got to play slow? The worst, like literally the least efficient, one of the worst half-court offenses in the league, got to play slow against a team that's going to play fast? That's how you think you're going to win this game, right? Man, Fred VanVleet must be getting his basketball tips from you. It is apparent to me that some people think that maybe I don't understand basketball as well as I think I do. And I'm open to that. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of these people that talk about basketball, they don't understand basketball at all. Now, I'm open to learning, and I'm going to adjust and adapt every single day. If there's things that I don't get, I'm going to read about them. I'm going to learn about them. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to read a book. And these people have been repeating the same bullshit for like 10 years. Recycle, repeat, recycle, repeat. You got a player who is 21 years old, who is doing his best to turn his season around. And man, he has been good for the last 5 games. And I do not hear apologies. I just hear more criticism. What's the story tonight, right? Let me look at the box score. Look at the plus minus, right? We're going to look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. No, that's team stats. Let's look at it. All right. Jeez. Well, what are we going to say about Scottie Barnes tonight, right? I mean, he had 23 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He was plus 16 in a game that his team lost by 14 points. That's hard to do. That's hard to do, right? Fred VanVleet, 9 points. 9 points, 3 assists. But he's the point guard, right? Final point. Final point. I want to make a final point on this. Just conclude this, then we're going to get to the calls. And I apologize I'm taking a little bit of your time, but I'm just... I guess I'm a little upset. I loved watching the Indiana Pacers tonight. I hate to say it, but it's true. I love how that team plays. I love Tyrese Haliburton. That's a real point guard. That's a real point guard. Toronto media, take note. That's a real point guard. He's not a perfect player. No, he has a set shot. He has a weak handle on one hand. Okay, I get it. But that's a real point guard. He's 22 years old. And he made your boy look like a bitch. That's just the truth. That's an all-star. You keep saying Fred VanVleet's an all-star. This is an all-star. That's an all-star. That's a fact. Fred VanVleet was not the second best point guard on the court tonight. I think he was about the 5th best point guard in the building tonight. Because there's a lot of stuff that TJ McConnell did where I'm like, man, I really wish... I can't remember the last time I saw Fred VanVleet get into the paint and dish like that to just clean open shooters. No, it's always off target. It's always late. I see this guy just crawling the pace of the game every game. I don't get it. Why? Do you think that's going to work for you? Just like kind of walking the ball up the court just because you're a little bit slow? It's just selfish. It's a selfish brand of basketball. Buy in or get out. That's sort of my end note to that. Buy in or get out. This team won a game without you. Honestly, you don't play, they win tonight too. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. You replace Fred VanVleet's minutes tonight with Jeff Dowtin Jr., you win this game going away. Not even close. How much impact did a guy have scoring 9 points, you might ask? 12 shots. Well, Rob, am I being unfair? You got to watch the tape, man. You got to actually watch the game. Blow by after blow by, breakdown after breakdown, late rotations. But let me guess. It's the back. We're going to blame the back. Fine. I don't like blaming players for being injured. I get it. I've been asking for sympathy and empathy and compassion and patience for Scottie Barnes' ankle and his knee as he gets right. Tonight, I might be asking for patience for his wrist if he didn't have a good game. I get it. But, maybe if you're not right, don't act like Dame Lillard. Maybe that's where I'm going with that. All right, let's get to some calls. I see some of you guys lined up. We got FA, we got Morris, we got NY4 Raps. We got a lot of our regulars. All right, we're gonna go to New York for our first one. NY4 Raps, how are you doing, sir?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir.
Yeah, so the 20 minutes when you were talking about the whole thing, it's like so many times I want to stop you because you just keep on hitting on my points.
Okay.
I also say, yeah, you said everything. I mean, you're true. I mean, I just can't thank you enough for this show and all that you do, your compassion for everything and all the emotions you shared about each and every player. I don't understand. Today, the defense was great. Scottie did everything right. Like it was 200%. He gave his all to the team. And so this team is, I don't understand where we're going with this now because the coaching staff, where is Jeff Dalton? Where is he? Why didn't he play today? Why did we have to play Malika? Malika used to ask 1 day, 2 days, okay, he'll give us some good games, but today was nowhere. Last game it was nowhere. And again, you already said everything, like you really did the good job in the intro. I don't understand where this team is going because you just shared the same thing that maybe millions of Canadians or people that love the Raptors already know. So what management got to get involved at this point because time for a change. I really don't have much to say because I'm really annoyed about the way things are going. And again, like you said about Scotty, this is a 2 year. It's just 2 years in the league, and look at what he brought to the table today. Anytime he went to the bench, we suck. I really don't get it.
It's so much stuff that he does that doesn't show up in the box score, and when you start obsessing over film, you start seeing all of it, right? It's crazy. Thinking Basketball once made a video about Kyle Lowry. It's called the Little King Thing, or Little Thing King, and it talks about all these little things that he does, from drawing charges to little offensive rebounds to screen assists, and all these little things that help you win that don't show up in the box score. And inevitably, it's not surprising to me that Kyle Lowry usually ends up on winning teams because he
It's
just does all that little stuff to help you win. And it's kind of crazy when I was thinking about tanking, like 2 weeks ago when the Raptors season was going off the rails. I remembered that I got reminded of a post that I wrote. And this was around the time that Scottie Barnes went to Florida State. And I was talking about like, hey, like in the off chance that he slips into the late lottery, that's where I thought he might go. I'm like, man, the Raptors need to get this guy because if you get this guy on your team, you're never missing the playoffs ever. He will
mhm.
shoot someone in the face. He will commit murder. He will
Yeah,
do something crazy. He'll throw people out of the locker room. He will not allow himself to lose because it's just that's not in his nature. Like he cares so much about winning, and it's like it's a very endearing quality that a human being can have, that they can put their team in front of them. So he doesn't need to score five. He doesn't need to score 50. He doesn't need to score 30. There's no ego there. He just want to do all the small things. And there's so many small things that an offensive player can do on the court to help his team be a good
yeah.
offensive team. I think like if I go back, if anyone out there is curious, go find an illegal place to stream this game and just slow it down the whole way. Watch the first quarter, the part where they were criticizing that he didn't score, and tell me how many times he set the screen on the guy who got open for the
Yes.
score. How
Exactly.
did Pascal get so open? How did Gary get so open? How did Fred get so open? He was assisting or screen
It
assisting
was
on
exactly.
everything. And I'm just like listening to the
And it was
commentary.
it could have easily got ISO 10 assists in the first quarter alone. There were
He had
so many.
five, yeah. Like
Exactly, got
yeah.
five.
Yeah, like and I mean he was plus 15 at the half, and like it's just like little things that he was contributing, and they were all contributing to winning. And it's just like, man, this guy's just balancing out because he knows that he's got these guys coming back into the lineup, Precious Achiuwa and Fred VanVleet, and neither one of them has ever met a shot they didn't like. And
Yeah,
Gary's in the starting lineup now. So the team does not need Scottie Barnes to score. This, five guys can't all be scorers. Like that's just not how offense works. Like
yeah.
the Golden State Warriors will not work without Draymond Green. So if you're gonna force Scottie Barnes to be Draymond Green, he's gonna be Draymond Green because the only way he can win. It's like the entire team is holding this guy hostage, and they're saying,
Yeah,
okay, well,
exactly.
we're only gonna let you play this one way. And if Scottie Barnes starts hunting his offense the way OG and Gary and these guys are doing it
He's
right
gonna make
now,
his
the
points.
whole team will be screwed because no one will
Exactly.
set picks.
It's gonna make his points, but guess what? We might still lose. Just like Pascal right now is making his 25, 28 points, but we're not winning. So they gotta shake up the team. Pascal gotta go, Van Vliet gotta go. Let's go with the younger players.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I kind of spent much of last year thinking that Gary Trent Jr. was a little bit selfish, and now I'm realizing, like, there was a
Oh,
time in the first
he
quarter
played football today.
he
Yeah,
play, he played great.
played
I mean,
football.
look,
He played
guys, like,
good with Scotty today.
yeah, and there was this one part in the first quarter where Scotty overpassed to him. He passed one too many times, and
Yeah.
the next time down, Gary's like looking at Scotty like,
Look
shoot,
at what
shoot.
Scotty shoot. Yeah, As I saw that too, I was surprised.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's like these guys are on the same team. And you know what was kind of curious? That in the fourth quarter, when the offense started to stagnate, it was Fred and Pascal kind of going back and forth.
Back
And
and
then when the
forth.
offense started to pick up, it was Gary.
It
It
was
was
also
Gary and Scottie.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that.
they said screw it. So Gary's like inbounds. So usually what happens is like when Pascal has the inbound, he'll usually pass to Fred, right? Naturally
Yeah.
to bring the ball up the court because that's his guy. And this is just such stupid things because sometimes Scottie will have to yell at him, be like, "No, I have a clear line."
At one point, Scottie was even raising his hands. I need the ball. I need the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. And then like Gary, like when he inbounded, he actually looked off Fred and passed to Scottie, and I was like, that's
Oh,
interesting.
yes.
It was great. So he sees it. So, anyways, I'm just happy. I'm proud of Scottie. I hate that he had to lose tonight. I hate that the Raptors lost tonight. And yeah, like you, I too am wondering where Jeff Dowtin is. I really hope that guy gets some minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final words?
Oh, you said everything already. You said
I'm
everything.
so sorry. I shouldn't have stolen your thunder. All right, man. Have a happy
All
New
right.
Year, and thank you so
Okay.
much. Cheers. All right, we going. Next up, we're going to FA from Wake Forest, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Next,
How you doing?
I'm pretty pissed off, to be honest. How are you doing?
I, I'm not pissed off. I'm really happy with this loss.
Really?
Honest.
Okay.
Yeah, because I picked this game as losing. Once we lose this game, like I'm done. I'm done with trying to win
Uh-huh.
because that was a point trap. I was just watching Donovan Mitchell go for 71 points
Hmm.
against Chicago. Looking at other teams, look at Boston and the rest. Right? What are we fighting for this season? We don't have the talents, honestly speaking. And you got to look at Pascal's timeline and Fred
Yeah.
VanVleet. They're going to be
I mean,
29
this
next
loss
year.
hurts so much more because this is a team you actually have to catch. You have to catch them.
Exactly,
Like,
because
there's no playoffs without passing them.
they won the home court, right? They won 2 games. The next game is in Toronto, and
I mean,
if we tie,
yes, not only do they win the season series, but they also happen to get a win for your loss, right? So it's like a full
yeah.
win,
But
right?
I was thinking of this yesterday, right? If Raptors can, because Indiana they have to make a decision if they're going to rebuild or if they because they're winning, they have a good
They
team.
should not
Maybe,
rebuild. They have a top 15 player.
maybe we should send Pascal to Indiana for Benedict Mathurin and some picks.
some spicy practices coming up with OG and Ben. But you know what? I really liked what I saw from Benedict Mathurin tonight. I love the Indiana Pacers, man. I love the way they play. TJ McConnell. I know Josh, who was on the show once, he was proposing this idea of trading for TJ McConnell. So I'm sure he had a kick watching tonight as TJ McConnell carved us up. I just like their dudes. Like I follow a lot of these guys. I've met a couple of them, and like, they're just good people. I don't know how else to explain it. Andrew Nembhard, like I really
Yeah.
wanted him on the Raptors. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to draft him. Even Miles Turner, like these are just good dudes. Like I don't know how else to say. They play the right way.
They play the right way. Look at the ball moving, rotating, changing sides and everything. And I honestly don't know for the life of me why the coach brought Pascal and Van Vliet back around the 6 minute timeline in the fourth quarter. Like
Hmm.
these guys were playing the right way. Because if you wanted to bring somebody back, you would have brought Pascal, right? But like New York NY said recently just now that like okay. Pascal always gets his points right, but are the points impactful? His
Hmm.
answer is no. Pascal is not going to be Batman. Pascal is always going to be Robin. He's not going to be your star to take it to the next level. So I think
Yeah.
they need to make a decision. But the sad point is that the next 6 or 7 games, their January schedule is really easy. They're playing
Mm.
Charlotte twice, and some other teams are not in the playoff. So they might find themselves in the middle of no man's land, 7-11 team, which my side doesn't really want. So I think they have to make a decision really, really quickly.
I wouldn't put it past this team to lose to Charlotte. We lost twice to Orlando. Orlando has fewer wins than Charlotte. I mean, like Charlotte's got LaMelo Ball back, man. That guy's pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I live in North Carolina. And they don't know how to win. I've
They
gone to
they,
their
they,
games
they, they
several
may
times.
not know how to win, but they've knocked off some pretty good teams this year. Like they've
Yeah,
knocked off some
the last
really
game
good
I
teams.
watched against the Raptors was in Charlotte, and they lost. And Raptors lost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
so
go. By the way, Donovan Mitchell had 71 points tonight.
71.
So
Yeah, and I was just watching the
that's
game.
crazy. That's
So
crazy.
It's crazy, right? So speaking of Scottie Barnes, I know you and the other guy was saying that he doesn't have to score, right? I think he has to score for the team to win. But with Pascal and
Man, if
Fred,
he's gonna score, who's gonna pass? Who's gonna set screens?
he,
Who's
he,
gonna
he
who's
can
gonna defend?
look at what Nikola Jokic is doing for Denver, right? I think
Yeah,
that is
Scotty's not
what
Nikola Jokic, man. And I mean, honestly, in
it's
fairness,
not here
Nikola Jokic
yet.
has a lot of like those eight point first halves. A lot. Like Nikola Jokic is like the king of like setting his teammates up. Here's the thing. I noticed
But
there was like
he has a lot of shooters around him, right? So he gets his assist and the defense. He has a lot of shooters around him. So Scotty doesn't have that. Like a lot. Most of the time, Scotty passes the ball and he has like the okay assist all the time. Passes to somebody, then they passes to somebody else for the three or whatever. Like there's several times when VanVleet has open shots, Scotty pass to him, and instead of taking the shot, he pass to somebody else.
mhm.
But I think Fred VanVleet, you either need to trade him or just bench him or rest him because I think he wants the next contract, so he's trying to play hard. He's been known for doing that. He plays himself to the ground so that he can get the next contract. He's not playing well at all. He sucks.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been the season from hell. Like easily the worst season of his life. I don't care, starter, bench, G League, whatever. This is the worst it's ever been. And last season, the half, that makes a full season. So this is half this season and half of last season. That's a full
Because
season.
last season he was playing for the All-Star game, right? And after the All-Star game, he went like he was playing to like taking all the shots, trying to get the numbers to be an All-Star. After the All-Star
Right.
game, he went south.
Right. And he was playing against some depleted teams. Like, look, it's just too easy to
Look at how
stop.
many times they're blowing past from Bleetham and Malachi today. Even the Pascal that's supposed to be a good defender, they blew by Pascal several times today. But
He's not a good he's not that good a defender.
It's not that good, and I know that, right?
Yeah.
But when it's Pascal, nobody says anything. But when it's Scottie Barnes,
Oh my
Josh
God, if
Newenberg, and
Scotty
the rest,
Barnes, if
it's
Scotty
like the
Barnes had
world is falling down.
if
If he
Scotty
had
Barnes had
like
gone 3 for 12 tonight, if Scotty Barnes had put up 9 points, gone 3 for 12, grabbed this many, if he had 3 assists, if he had
with all the
been plus,
blow-bys,
yeah,
with
if
all
he
the
had given up
blow-bys.
that many blow-bys, if he had been that useless, I swear to God, every one of these media people will be writing a hit piece about him right now. They would literally jerk off to it and then publish it tomorrow. These guys, like, it's so absurd to me, like their obsession with hating on a 21-year-old. It's like, bro, who broke you? Like, who messed you up as a child that you would see somebody playing the right way and be like, no, that's the guy we're gonna hold as a scapegoat. The guy going through a knee injury, the guy
And
playing the right way, the perfect teammate. Let me give you an example. There was a one play where Scotty had an open layup, almost wide open layup, right? He sees OG in the corner. OG's had a tough night up until that point, right? Boom, passes it out. OG hits the shot. Next play down, I think Siakam or VanVleet. VanVleet passed to him, and he went right to the basket with so much confidence and dunked it. And I was like, that is the point. You have to activate your teammates. It's like these people never played basketball. Like, anytime I've ever talked to someone who really understands basketball, and this is like, I mean, this is a very bad argument to make because it almost sounds like I'm saying that if you don't appreciate Scotty Barnes, you don't understand basketball. But in a weird way, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm just like, you didn't learn the game the right way. So there are people that learn the
which is
game as
true. The great Isaiah Thomas said it the other day on NBA TV, right? Like that, you gotta let your everybody touch the ball, even your big man that can't even shoot the ball. Just let him
absolutely go
touch
back
the
and
ball.
watch like Larry
It's gonna
Bird.
get the ball back to you. Let them just the feel of the ball makes them engage. They're like part of the system.
Exactly. I mean, look at how great OG's season was going when Pascal was out. Do you remember that? He was like
Yeah.
22, 23, 24 points a night. He was like putting up like these huge fourth quarters. He was looking so good, and now he just looks kind of disengaged and lost. Look, at the end of the day, an
And
offense.
the sad part is that with Pascal, OG, and Scotty, right, you could have had like three monsters, right?
You
That
can
work
make
like
that threesome work.
they can work with each other and like instead of Pascal trying to do 1-on-5, right? I know it scores the point. When Pascal started scoring today, I told my brother that you know what, this game is gonna be a tough one and we're likely gonna lose. And that's what happened. And by the way, full disclosure, NY for us is my brother.
Okay. Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, I didn't see the resemblance. That's crazy. So we had two brothers on. That's so cool. And you guys are both in the States. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
And
we
you
used to
both
live in Canada
and
together. So.
oh, that's so cool. And you both love Scottie Barnes. That's awesome. I love it. Well, Efe, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm hoping you had a beautiful 2023, the
Yeah,
start to
I
2023.
enjoyed the game, right? Even though we lost today, right? Any game Scotty plays well, you can and Gary Trent obviously now, right? You see the excitement of the game, you see the ball moving and some of the passes he's making, right? But when Pascal scores like 50 something, sometimes as I said, this is like the worst loss that you can see, right? You can't
Yeah.
really pick 1 or 2 points in the game where you're like, okay, this is like great play. It's like one on one, ISO, bounce, 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 turn around and shoot, bounce, 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 drive and shoot. Like everybody's not involved.
Yeah. No, I agree. Anyway, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Uh,
We're gonna get on to Mo. I want to wish you again a happy New
happy,
Year and brilliant
all right. I'll
2023
sit.
ahead.
I'll sit back and listen to. I'm great video this morning. That was great.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm proud of it too. Okay.
Hmm.
See you.
See ya.
Next up, we got Mo, and then we're gonna get to Ian, and then Marco and Amir. Okay. Morris, Mo, Coach Mo, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
All right, lay it on me. Okay. In the past, I've been a little bit like, hey, like let's go a little soft on Fred VanVleet. You know what? Kid gloves off. I'm sick of this guy. And
Um,
I'm so sick of watching this brand of basketball. It's not sick of the guy. I'm sure the guy is great. The guy is awesome. Whatever. Like, do it. But I am starting to see like the ripple effects of some of the off-court stuff, and I'm just becoming more aware of it as I read it. Like yesterday I did like a dig through of all the articles and all the I'm working on something. I'm working on something to expose something, and I'm going through these articles and I'm like, God damn it. Every quote, every line, it's so. And then I see the on-court stuff and I see how he talks about himself and I'm just
yeah,
like, bro, I would trade you to the Lakers for a third round pick right now.
yeah. And it's interesting. McConnell, when
Hmm.
he saw Fred, his eyes lit up.
Yeah, he did. He exposed it.
McConnell is a very smart player. He knows who he can attack. He knows who he can't attack. He saw Fred. He saw Gary, and he said, "I'm going to the basket." Everyone else, even if Pascal's a straight line drive, if Pascal's not defending well, he's still 6'9". He still has long arms. It's going
Yeah.
to impact your shot for McConnell.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
it's
want to,
ironic that Scottie did the exact same thing to him, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to talk about the broadcast crew in the beginning, harping on Scottie's not shooting. Scottie's not shooting. You got to shoot that. You got to shoot that. And I was thinking the exact same thing you're thinking. We're up double digits. He has like 4 assists early, no turnovers.
Do you
Pascal
do
was
you realize like the second
4 of 5.
he left, like all the
Yes,
turnovers started picking up.
yes.
Nobody could pass the ball. Like everyone's just like throwing the ball off each other's heads, out of bounds. And I'm just like, bro, there is an actual science to playmaking,
Mhm.
screen setting, proper rolling, proper spacing. Scotty's like going like to me in the first quarter, in that first stint that he played before he left, he played about as perfect a floor game as I've seen him play in a really
Yep.
long time. This was one of my favorite Scottie Barnes games ever. And that might sound crazy to anyone looking at the stats and you're like, oh, 23 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. That's not that great. Trust me. Like the actual game he had, the impact he made, the
The
plus
activity.
minus isn't lying. Like the activity, the defense, how up into my God, people who say he's slow or that he has like bad foot speed, go watch Ben Mathurin like dust dudes on a nightly basis. He couldn't breathe against him. It was impressive. It was impressive, and it's frustrating to see these efforts get wasted. To use a line from a lot of Pascal fans, right? A lot of Pascal fans feel that his effort on this season is being wasted. Well, I feel like tonight we wasted a second straight really good game from Gary Trent Jr. and, quite frankly, a second straight very good game from Scottie Barnes.
But with Pascal's impact, it doesn't translate. The numbers don't translate to like winning. Like you watch the game and you're like, it's like that's why the superstar talk is crazy because superstars they lift the team around them, whereas Pascal, he's gonna get his numbers at pretty decent efficiency, but it's like it's not, you know what I'm trying to say. It's not there. It's not there. He doesn't really make anyone necessarily better. He passes when he gets doubled or he's not a step ahead. But I thought Scotty got Pascal easy looks in the beginning. Pascal started 4 or 5. The dribble handoff, setting a screen. He got Pascal going downhill with some separation. He got Gary going early, but all Matt Devlin and Alvin could harp on was he's not shooting the open shots, but he gets into these actions so quickly.
You know, the only player who has ever frustrated me in Raptor history as much as Fred VanVleet in terms of point guards,
Alvin.
I was almost like it's basically my top 3 most frustrating point guards of all time are number 1 Alvin Williams, number 2 Fred VanVleet, number 3 Mike James. It's in that order. Yeah. Alvin Williams was like people like him now because he talks about him in this self-deprecating manner, and he talks about him like he was a role player, and he was basically a role player. Mm-hmm. And he just didn't see the floor. And there's so many, like, there's things that I liked about his game, but man, like, as I was learning the game, it was like everything I was learning was like, don't be like Alvin Williams. And what I liked about him most was that he got off the ball a lot, but when he would dribble the ball and he would like pound it and he would try to go into his thing, he just didn't have it. And it was just so frustrating to see it. He was a good defender. That was one thing, you know, you can give him.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see why he identifies with Fred VanVleet. You know, it's a very similar story. It's a very similar background. It's a very similar style. It's a very similar mindset. And, you know, it's just unfortunate. I was thinking about like what type of person even wants to go into media, you know, and it's like, well, power trippy types, insecure types, people who need to stand on a soapbox to feel self-important. I mean, kind of ironic that I run a basketball podcast and I'm throwing shade at people who work for the media, but that was just trying to think of like the psychological profile of people who would feel the need to, who would even identify with this guy, because I know a lot of people that are very sensible basketball people, like they kind of see it clearly and they're very sensible human beings, and like seriously, they can't stand this guy. Like I swear to God, there's like a 17-year-old kid that I used to tutor, and he saw one of my videos and he's just like looking at Fred VanVleet's quotes and he's like, this guy comes off so entitled. I'm like, bro, you're 17 years old and you could see this.
Yeah. Like I've said it before, Fred walks and talks like he's Steph Curry on the Warriors.
For real.
That, like, he has that kind of gravitas on this franchise, and it's absurd. But another reason I think we struggled with Scottie on the bench, at least early, was he's actually our best center right now. Until Achiuwa gets back defensively, he's the best one. He makes the least amount of mistakes. Koloko picked up later, but Koloko, when the mistakes for him, they start piling up quickly, and it's like a huge snowball. Yeah, even with the paint defense and the switchability, but it's like the energy he expends. He's like playing point guard, and he's guarding centers. He's doing so much on offense, and he's in so much action on defense. You can see him huffing and puffing halfway through the third quarter because he's just doing too much. There's too much asked for him to do.
Yo, I'm just scared that he's gonna huff and puff too much, and Josh Lewenberg's gonna say that Scottie Barnes needs to get into better shape. I'm just saying, you know, like maybe Doug Smith can find another inside source that can find out that Scottie Barnes, you know, picked up smoking over the offseason or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he eats too many Happy Meals, or maybe they're gonna dig at, you know, his choice of cereal tomorrow. I don't know, but these people are straight up twisted. Like the way that they are defending this guy and deflecting, because look, at the end of the day, when a season does not go right, you need a scapegoat. You always need a scapegoat. It has to be Russell Westbrook's fault. It has to be Kyrie Irving thinks the earth is flat. There's always a scapegoat, and the media picks their guy, and they could pin it on anybody. It doesn't really matter. There's no court. There's no due process. There's no investigation unless I'm going to like release one low light film every single day for the rest of my life. There's no investigation of these bullshit claims. The other day, I just want to say something. Sorry, Mo, I don't want to override you, but I think we're sort of driving at the same point here. The other day, I watched the Clipper podcast. Do you know what they said about Scottie Barnes?
Yeah, I heard what it was. They were talking about he has work ethic issues.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's like broken telephone.
Oh my God, what an unsubstantiated bullshit claim. And to be around somebody who had actually been around him this offseason and knows how hard he worked, and to listen to this bullshit being parroted across the league. And it's like, once you get that label, it is not possible to shake. And Vince developed that label of, you know, leaking plays, which was a very unsubstantiated rumor that, you know, was echoed by some people in order to justify the paltry return that they got for him in the trade, and saying that he quit, and then they kind of edited around that bullshit, you know, Thompson interview where he said he didn't always work as hard as he should have. And that was just him being as forthright that he was a young player who didn't, always work as hard as he should have. And I think that was a very honest thing that he said. And they twisted it to say that he dogged it in Toronto. Once he got that label, no matter what he did, and he did so much good in his career, you should talk to the players who were actually teammates, younger teammates of his in New Jersey, and how much they revered this guy for how selflessly he would go through motions with them, and how he was such a great teacher, and how he was like willing to like work with them and share the ball with them. He was not a bad teammate. He was a great teammate, and he was super tough, and he became an Iron Man. Like, look how many games he played. So all this shit that they said, it's stuck, even though he spent 20 years proving it was absolute horseshit. Or 16 years proving it was horseshit. It's still stuck because it's an anchoring bias. So, we have this idea of Scottie Barnes as this like lovable, great teammate, cares about winning, cares about ball, loves basketball, loves people, loves, everybody. And they're trying to change it to something that it's not. And it's like, that's where I draw the line. It's like, if you want to say that he's kind of uncomfortable with shooting, like, I'm okay with that. Like, that's cool, like, keep it, 100. If he has a game where he has some mental lapses defensively or makes some silly turnover late, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's still basketball. That's not going to ruin someone's career, But when you start talking about this guy, like he doesn't care about basketball, that there's these inside sources that say he didn't work hard. I'm like, bro, are we watching the same player? Like, are we kidding here? Like, this shit is actually, like, I want these people to bury themselves at this point. These people talking on his name, I just want them to bury themselves at this point, because I want him to just come out and prove every one of them wrong. But then the problem is that now that they have established that he has work ethic issues, now they will twist it to be, well, he heard the noise and that's why he's working hard. See what I mean? It's never ending. And so it's like, it's really difficult without blasting them for their bias to actually correct it. I know there are a lot of people who think this would just go away, but I've watched a lot of athletes get assassinated by the media. It doesn't just go away.
Yeah, attitude issues or whatever, difficult, those kind of labels, they just stick.
Yeah. No, it's like, like the minute somebody accuses you of anything and the minute you respond to it, now that's a new talking point. It's either Scottie Barnes is lazy or isn't lazy. But that's never a conversation we had about Kyle Lowry. It's never a conversation we had about DeMar DeRozan, Chris Bosh, Jonas Valanciunas, Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay, in all of his inefficiency, no one ever said he didn't work hard. People said he had bad shot selection, which is like unquestionably true, right? But like, I'm trying to think of the last time that an athlete in Toronto, like in for the Raptors, got openly dogged for not having a good work ethic or not caring enough about the game. And I'm getting shades of like Andrea.
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, and it's like, why is and it's part of me, it's like thinking that if you're not political, these guys are going to kill you. And Scottie's not political at all. There's not a political bone in his body. He doesn't, he's not going to give you the quote that you're looking for. Yeah. He's not going to talk shit about Fred VanVleet, no matter how much you want him to, right? Because they egg him on. They try to get him to say these negative things about people. He's not going to give you the quote that he hates coming off the bench. He just doesn't give them anything. He won't give them anything. And it's like, that's who he is as a person. He's not ever going to do that. He's never going to, he's not like LeBron. Let's put it that way. LeBron's a master politician, right? He's never going to do that thing where he's going to like a tweet saying Fred VanVleet needs to pass the ball more and then give the media a talking point. He doesn't give the media anything. He keeps everything in-house. They ask him, hey, how'd you feel about Fred VanVleet passing the ball? He's not going to like correct them the way Kyrie Irving corrects them. Like, bro, who are you talking about? No, he just gives them exactly, like, okay, yeah, I love Fred VanVleet passing the ball. He just gives us the ball. He's great. Good guy. Like, he just, okay, I just want to go play ball. And it's like, I saw Kevin Durant this way too. I saw Kevin Durant coming up 19-20, and I'm like, man, when the media starts talking to this guy, they're going to assassinate him because he just doesn't vibe with those people. Like,
same with Kawhi.
Kawhi, same thing, right? And it's
Russ.
like the media, exactly. Kawhi, Russ, like there's just guys that they're just not built for that. Like they weren't wired that way. They have good parents. That's the problem. Their parents never taught them how to manipulate a situation. They never read How to Win Friends and Influence People. They're not equipped in this world. And to be honest, no offense, a lot of these guys aren't as educated as the people that are trying to manipulate them. They're not as experienced. They're not as old, right? Josh Lewenberg, he graduated from journalism school. How many stories has this guy churned, and how much? It's like, it's really predatory. if you think about it. These media scrums, what we're watching, is really just grown men, typically, no offense, a lot of, Caucasian men, tripping up young black athletes into saying something stupid that's going to ruin their career. And that's what really pisses me off about this whole thing.
I, I also want to talk about the broadcast crew. It's getting hard to listen to. The homerism is getting too much. Like there'll be a clear foul, and they'll be like, "Oh, that wasn't a foul," or that's not out of bounds when it clearly was, or we don't know if that shot's gonna count when we're like we see it in
Well,
Siakam's hands.
Alvin did something really nice today. He actually called like a couple of plays where like, oh, that was definitely a foul on OG, and I was like, yes, it was definitely a foul on OG. Thank you for calling it.
Yeah, it's Matt Devlin. Matt Devlin, I think his job is just to be the biggest homer on the planet and the biggest Fred VanVleet cheerleader.
Freddie All-Star, man.
Yeah,
Freddie
Freddie All-Star.
All-Star.
I mean,
You
you'll
know,
never hear him say anything bad shot selection, not playing good defense, struggling, maybe move the ball. No, Scottie doesn't take an open shot. You'll hear about it right away.
it's sad, but you know what? Maybe this is just more of a reason for Raptor fans to tune out of this broadcast and go listen to the other teams. Trust me, like I've done it all season, and they are not as biased. Like I'll listen to one half of one half of the other. Sometimes I'll go all one team, all the other. But if these guys are going straight homer, I won't listen to it. I would just turn on the other
They're
team's
putting
broadcast.
people in positions that aren't ready. I don't think Savannah Hamilton's ready.
Oh
Not
my
at all.
God,
She's horrible. But and Alvin isn't
unfortunately,
ready.
yeah,
Alvin isn't ready either, right?
yeah.
But that's what
Well,
we're
I mean,
getting.
it's it's the what did Kwame Brown say? Do you remember the rants that Kwame went on?
Yeah, I remember those rants.
He made a lot of sense
Yeah,
to
he
me.
did. He
He
did.
did, right? And he called it the go along get along crew, right?
Go along,
And
get along, gang.
go along get along gang. That's
Yeah.
it. Go along get along gang. All these people, they walk in the same circles. They went to the same schools. They have the same agendas. They talk shit about the same people. They're all really small-minded people, and quite frankly, they all get along. No shit, because they have like a very warped perception of morals and reality. The morals of the situation are you're ripping a guy who's 21 years old who's trying his best, and you're doing it in favor of a guy that you're trying to protect because he has a max contract on the line, and he's having the worst season from hell. That's the truth. You're trying to peg something. You can't really peg it on Christian Koloko. No one's going to buy that, right? You can't really peg it on OG because he's kind of like Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You can't really peg it on Pascal because, Pascal's putting up these big box score numbers. So who can you really blame for this? Who can you offset it? We call it false consciousness. And like my mom and my dad, God bless their souls, like rest in peace. They both taught me about false consciousness when I was a really young kid. And they said, there are going to be some pretty shit people in your life, and they're going to do some shit things to you. And as they're doing shit things to you, like they're driving a stake through your back, they're going to be telling you, but look at that person doing this thing to your leg. And that's all it is. It's false consciousness, is diverting the attention. All we're talking about these days is Scottie Barnes as good as we thought he was? And every damn day that we talk about this, I'm like, there is like an all-star max seeking point guard who claims he is the leader of this team, who is consistently shooting like 0 for 11, 2 for 12, can't guard his soul right now, who is just killing this team. And I'm not hearing shit about it. And it's like somebody's got to call it out.
Passing balls at people's ankles.
Passing balls at people's ankles, does not know how to manipulate a defense, keeps slowing. Like, God, I could go on and on about this guy. And it's so frustrating to listen to. It's so frustrating to listen. It's like I'm watching one game and they're calling a completely different game. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, oh, Fred VanVleet's in a slump. It's like you can cover someone's 2 for 20 night in so many different ways. You could say, man, he was really aggressive, but the shots just didn't fall. Well, now I feel really good about that performance. Or you'd be like, wow, he probably shouldn't have taken so many shots. And now I'm like, this guy kind of selfish. You see what I mean? 2 for 20. It's like, depending on who's calling it, it could sound different. But it's like other GMs are not blind. Bill Simmons today on the Ringer pod, or yesterday, he posed a trade for Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. Now, Gary Trent Jr. probably being the more valuable of the two assets in there. And the Raptors would get back, get this, the expiring contract of D'Angelo Russell, Nikola Jovic from Miami Heat in a 3-way trade, and a first-round pick. That is the going rate not for an all-star. That is not the going rate for an all-star. I'll tell you that. There's not one all-star point guard in the league that you can get for that shit with Gary Trent Jr. Other people are not blind. They see the
By the
season
way,
he's having.
yeah. By the way, random note.
Mhm.
Is this even feasible? This trade? And tell me
Okay.
this trade, just random, really quick.
Okay.
The Raptors trade away Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr. for Rudy Gobert, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards. Is that even possible?
It might be, but I don't like Anthony Edwards enough to give up even Pascal Siakam at this point, to be honest. I've seen some really weird attitude issues from him at this point. So I think that might just be selling the farm to sell the farm, and you're taking on a pretty nasty contract with Rudy Gobert, to be honest.
But I think
I understand that he could be better, but one of the big reasons he's not good is because that his teammates hate him. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why they've faltered so bad. So
I was
yeah.
doing all that just to get Anthony Edwards and pair him with Barnes. The rest are just filler to me.
I think those guys would probably buy pretty hard, but like Anthony Edwards, like I haven't seen any defense from him at all this year that would give me any hope that he can be a solid two-way player. Potential is all there. He's got all world potential, but I'm not sure I like the maturity element of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Anyway, Mo, I want to thank you so much. Hopefully those 300 or so people listening enjoyed our frustrations on Fred
Yeah.
VanVleet. Anyway, man, thanks a lot, and Happy New Year, by the way.
You too, man.
Cheers. Okay, next up we got Ian. All right, Ian, how are you doing?
Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm good.
I really enjoyed that impassioned diatribe to open up the show.
Thanks for calling it a diatribe. I appreciate it.
You know what? It's the and by the way, I know the other YouTuber that you're referring to. We'll leave him unnamed.
No clout for him.
Yeah. It's one of those fables that people are drawn to. Unfortunately, it's like the Rudy story. He goes to Notre Dame, finally gets into Notre Dame, and it's like one of those things that people are like naturally drawn to. I feel like,
yeah.
And they're being they're kind of like gaslighting themselves,
Yeah, you know what? Like it is so weird. I mean, the common man in North America is about 5'10" and a half. With younger generations coming up, the median age of the average human being 30, I could argue that it might be a little bit taller, maybe 5'11", which means that the average person in the world, or at least the average person in North America, I mean, I come from a pretty tall country. I'm short for my country. Like Serbians are like average 6 foot for men. I'm 5'11". So at no point did I ever like look at Fred VanVleet and be like, yeah, go. I don't care. Like my favorite players have all been 6'8", 7 feet. My favorite player of all time, probably Arvydas Sabonis, 7'3". I don't need to identify with who I respect. I don't need to identify with that one particular thing. And maybe it's because for some people, they can't look past the surface. Like they can only see the frame. They'd be like, oh, that guy has a beard like me, or that guy's my skin color, or that guy's my height. It's like, yeah, but does he believe in the stuff that you believe in? Is he about what you're about? Scottie Barnes is about what I'm about. I'm about helping people. Like my whole life has been about helping people and being happy for people. My girlfriend, like this is getting sort of personal. Sorry to just go off on a tangent here, but I always feel like you and I have like the best conversations
Go for it.
At one point she was wanting to buy something that I thought was a pretty irrational purchase, and we're not married, but we do live together. And I was like, it doesn't matter to me if it's your money or my money. To me, it's like the exact same. Like I can't like watch you screw yourself over and feel any better about it. And to me, it's like that's sort of the mentality that I have about being on a team. Like I can't watch my teammates struggling and not feel like it's somehow my responsibility to help them through that, like get them an easy touch. Like that's just sort of my mentality about life. It's the same reason I can't walk past someone who's struggling on the street and not at least want to acknowledge them if I can't.
No,
help
I
them
totally get you.
financially.
Yeah, I totally get you. And I think this whole thing is also drawing away energy from like bigger, more important macro subjects. It's just like a huge distraction that's completely unnecessary. And unfortunately, the sooner that I can tell you're ready to like run through a brick wall or slam your head through a wall, and you're basically articulating how everyone feels. And again, this isn't to be disingenuous or like not be fair, etc. But what you have is a team that is essentially a young team that's good. Like they're good players, and like look what Precious did. Look how he affected the game today, coming back. Like I know you noticed that. Like even though he was getting a little bit of foul trouble, but like if you look at the advanced stats, if you could forecast before like the ball was tipped, the Raptors were supposed to win this game. Like I know the line had Pacers at -3, but like they won the first quarter. Okay, now they just couldn't. Again, they couldn't point of attack defense. When I first called you the first time, Haliburton is just burning our point of attack defense. And it's like, but if you could just contain that, the Raptors win this game. But this is our season in a nutshell. Anyway,
I had actually, you and I have discussed betting quite a bit on this channel, and some people have complained. They'll be like, "This is not a betting channel. I hate degenerate gamblers." Well, you guys are going to hear about this for 1 minute because I had slammed. I had expected the Raptors to win this game, and this is no joke. The second I found out that Fred VanVleet was coming back, I absolutely flipped my bet. I cashed out and I placed all the money on the Pacers.
You want to hear something freaking crazy? We were up, and then I flipped it, and I took the Pacers because they were like +5 or 6 at that point. Yeah. Because I just, and again, I'm not down on how well Scottie played. All the points you made were excellent points, and this is not to be pessimistic or looking at the glass half empty. None of that crap. It's just like small things. How there's too much penetration. Okay. And of course, yeah, you can be down on their shot make or lack of shot making, but it starts with point of attack defense. So anyway, I don't want to repeat myself, but the last thing I'll say is, unfortunately, and I know you love Trent, I love Trent, you have to sell high on him right now.
Well, first of all, I don't love Trent at all. Like I spent much of last year making some pretty disparaging comments about him, and
I didn't follow you last year. I just started following you now.
Yeah. So anyone out there who thinks that I'm just going to die on my hill, I actually don't die on any hills. I adjust constantly, like any rational person should. And he's been a different player this year. He's done a lot of great things. I've seen playmaking potential. I've seen paint finishing potential. And at 23 years old, I don't. Okay, like this is going to sound like a hot take. There isn't a great deal of difference between him and Ben Mathurin right now, other than maybe 2 years of age.
I don't think that's far fetched. I don't think the market's going to see it that way.
It's a gap in a sense, but it's not that big a gap. And so if he was reasonable, and I also have kind of paused off that notion that I had of him just being a very me first and very selfish player, because I've sort of started to look at him through a different lens and tried to understand who he is as a teammate and how he supports his teammates and stuff. And he's just a weird dude. Like to me, he's weird. Like he's kind of offbeat. He's off in his own head. I probably wouldn't understand him necessarily, but having listened to a few interviews that his dad did about how he grew up and stuff, and I'm just like, I kind of see it. I don't like to psychoanalyze players too much that I've never met, but I can sort of see him fitting in. I know he's not a great defender. I understand the concept of selling high. I just think that it's really hard to sell high on a rental.
We can't pay him. That's the point.
Well, the only reason we can't pay him is because there's this, this 6-foot guard, who I honestly look. If you ask me right now, Fred VanVleet for $20 million, which is way less than he's willing to accept. But let's just say hypothetically he gets off his high horse and accepts $20 million, which is a far cry from what he's worth right now, going into age 30 at some point. Or Jeff Dowtin Jr. for 2 years at $2 million a year. What's going to help me more over the next 3 years? I'll take Jeff Dowtin. I would take Jeff Dowtin. That is how low I am. And I know it's a pretty irrational take, given how well Fred VanVleet shines analytically. But I think some people really need to understand the weakness of some analytics.
It's not irrational. I'll finish off by saying, you said it earlier when you were praising Haliburton. Can you imagine Haliburton on the Raptors? I'll leave it there.
Oh my God! Don't leave me there. Don't leave me there.
Imagine that type of playmaking.
You know damn well that the Raptors could have traded Siakam last year for Haliburton plus a lot. Like if Sabonis was worth Haliburton, Siakam was worth more than Sabonis. I find it sort of shocking, but it's so projectable how good he was. I don't know if you've seen the shows that I've done with Leo, who covers the Sacramento Kings, but he is just going to die on his hill that Haliburton is not as good as Fox, and Haliburton's not. And I'm just like, bro, you don't understand. This guy. Real
quick,
so
he
awesome.
he was crazy for turning down that trade for what was it, like Siakam goes to the Pelicans, like Siakam and Zion would run the West. They would be like
That would
no
be
one,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, I think they would not be guaranteed to the finals, but it would be very interesting. I
Yeah, no,
I
I
was like
agree.
raging when I heard him. He's like, humming and hawing. I'm like, you crazy? Of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, honestly, that's a future thing, right? I love Dyson Daniels. I like Trey Murphy.
Yeah.
I don't mind having Jonas Valanciunas back. And obviously Brandon Ingram's, one of my, let's say 35, 40 favorite players. I like watching him. I think it would be a lot more entertaining to watch that team. Like miles more entertaining. I would get season tickets like that to watch Scottie Barnes, Dyson Daniels, and Trey Murphy like run up and down the court. Vision 6'9"
Are
would
you
be
kidding
like,
me?
oh my
Oh my
God.
God.
Like I would be there every single game. I would probably like mortgage. I'd probably take a second mortgage on my house to get like front row seats or something crazy. Like that would just be my dream. It's like it's like a vision of how basketball ought to be played versus how
Yeah.
basketball is played by certain teams. And there's just certain teams that I just don't like watching, and this is one of them,
No,
unfortunately.
Rob, look, I know you're a
Yeah,
purist, and listen, happy
unfortunate.
New Year, brother. All right,
Yeah.
keep
Happy
doing
New
what you're
Year.
doing.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much, Ian. Cheers as
Cheers,
always.
bye.
Yeah. I want to say thank you so much to Brad Moores, a $20 super chat. Man, that's hella generous. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I have no idea what I've done to deserve any of the praise or any of the support. Well, I mean, I guess I work hard, but yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's doing that, who's sharing these videos. Sometimes I don't know, sometimes I'll see a Twitter thread or a Reddit thread or real GM thread, and someone's just like trashing me. Like there are people coming out from the woodworks, like we're talking like grade school, high school, talking like, oh, this guy did this and this guy did that, and there'll be just people like defending me, and I'm like, that's that's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you. Um, there was also a comment earlier about a certain outlet that used to be sort of the voice of the Raptors, and then they said, well, they went corporate, and when will Pensari basketball ever go corporate? When will you sell out for a media pass? And my honest answer to that is never. I can't. I don't know how to. I wish I could tell you I knew how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Corporate is just not. I run the Pendance Film Festival. I wasn't able to play politics with Pendance. I wasn't able to play politics with Pensari Films. I don't do politics, and I don't like people who do politics. And if the cost of a media pass means I can't ask the questions that I want, then I will piss on that media pass. I don't believe in the ethics of something, and if I don't believe in the ethics of something and the ethos of something, not to sound like a complete stickler and weirdo, but like I can't participate in something that doesn't vibe with my soul. Does that make sense? So to anyone out there who's wondering, when is Pensari basketball going to become big enough that they're no longer going to be willing to call these people out? The answer is never. I will not stop. All right. Okay, next up we got Amir. Amir, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good.
I don't want to really talk about Fred VanVleet. You
Great.
guys probably
Let's switch it.
beat that horse dead, but just like they need to pick a direction. This team, like it's clearly not going to get better. It's been 41 games now, almost. I think half the season. They're sitting at 12 or 13. So I think at this point they need to pick a direction. Like, do they want to build around Scottie and sell high on all the pit on their players, or they want to continue to try to be a playing team, and then pick in the 14, 15, for the draft. So I don't know.
Right.
That's just like what I think. They need to just pick a direction. It's not going to get any better. Fred VanVleet is not going to miraculously play, at the All-Star Forum. So I think that's like just what I think. They just need to pick a direction at this point. It's not going to get any better.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. There's a lot of loyalty, right, to guys who kind of quote unquote brought you here. And yeah, it's hard to say goodbye to certain people, right? I'm sure it would be very difficult for this team to just say, adios, Fred. I know that you were this integral part of our championship run. And I think that there's a theory that when you build up a lie, you have to keep lying to protect the lie that you built. Like, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone listening out there. You can let me know in the comments if that kind of makes sense. But it's like It's kind of like putting shit on top of shit, or like newspapers on top of shit to hide the stink. And it's like there was a big lie about the Raptors championship that there were certain people who participated in that win a lot more than they actually did, that they were way more instrumental. I heard a Raptor commentator say that Pascal Siakam was 1B to Kawhi's 1A. That's a lie. That never happened. That is bullshit. It made me so mad to hear that, because it's like, bro, being the second best scorer on the team or second leading scorer does not mean you were 1A, 1B, 1C. You were not even B. Like Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, those were your three best players. It does not matter how many points they scored. They were by far your three best players. And it is mind-boggling to me that they want to build this myth that he was the second best player on that team.
Yeah, that's
It's
kind
a
of
lie.
like a Dwayne Wade would be like a 1B, you know?
Yeah,
Something like that.
Dwayne Wade was a 1B. Like that.
Yeah.
That is a generous, 1B. I think Kevin Garnett sort of. Nah, not even.
Yeah, Chris Middleton, like
Chris Middleton. Yeah, I mean that's fair. Chris Middleton's a hell of a player, a hell of a lot better than Siakam was back then, and a hell of a lot better than Fred VanVleet ever was. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just there's
Anthony Davis.
It's such a disingenuous thing, and I understand why they do it, because obviously when Kawhi left, you need to sustain it, right? You need the fan base, because let's be honest, when the Raptors won the championship, it was the best and worst thing to ever happen to this franchise, right? In the best way, because it's really damn hard to win a championship. In the worst way, because the guy who delivered it kind of left right away, right? And had he stayed, I think they could have built something really beautiful around him, and they probably could have kept him a little bit healthier than he stayed with the Clippers, and they might have even repeated the next year because they were hella good next year. But I think that there needed to be a lot of mythology that was built around it, because it needed to offset the mythology of this mercenary who came and delivered you a championship. And I'll never agree with this notion that the Raptors were just Kawhi and a bunch of guys. That's totally stupid. They were a complete team.
Yeah,
But
they
we need
were.
to acknowledge that team is gone. Like,
Yeah, it's been gone,
It
and
left.
every year-
Yeah. And I mean, like, the Raptors have been like bottom 3, bottom 4 in assists every year since Kyle Lowry left. And I'm still getting sold this bullshit myth that Fred VanVleet's the next Kyle Lowry. And Kyle Lowry is one of my favorite players of all time. You are not going to tell me. And once again, we are back to Fred VanVleet. Okay, let's stay away from that topic.
I think
Fred
Fred even the management got tricked. That Fred VanVleet was like the Kyle Lowry, the next Kyle Lowry, or something like that.
Well,
So
I mean,
it's
let
like-
that be a lesson to people. Daryl Morey has a very interesting thing that he does with draft prospects. It's very interesting. And anyone out there who thinks Daryl Morey's a kook, that is also true. He's crazy in a lot of ways, but also is very fascinating and has a really interesting way of looking at the world. Most odd people that we think are offbeat kind of do. And he made a rule in his draft room that anytime you compare a player to another player, they cannot be of the same ethnicity. So you have to find another comparison. And it made people a lot less lazy with their comparisons, because it's very tempting. And it's not just, he was like, okay, well, like, why is this player like this? Like, why do you think this player is the next Steve Nash? Is it because he's a white guy from a mid-major college? Or is it because he actually does see the game like Steve Nash? Why do you think this guy is the next Amari Stoudemire? Is it because he's an African-American 6'10" guy who jumps really high? Or is there actually something to it? And the more they found, the more they were like, these draft comparisons anchor people to very false narratives about prospects and who they can be. And so, like, we had all those next Michael Jordans, Harold Miner, Michael Finley, et cetera, in the 90s. And it was like, there was a serious anchoring bias to how people saw those players from there on out, because it was like, that's the next Mike. And you start imagining things that aren't there with these players. And it's like the same thing with Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry. It seems so obvious, and they're standing next to each other. One learned under the other, but it's like, my gosh, listen to them talk. One can't talk about anything but getting himself paid. The other one wants to get everyone else paid. How can you possibly expect these two players to operate the same offense? They will never.
No, Fred VanVleet, it seems like he's still like trying to either prove that he's like, oh, bet on myself, or he's trying to get the next contract. And I feel like that's kind of affecting the team this year. Everyone knows he's trying to get that next contract. So you can say, oh, look at me, I'm the undrafted player who got a second contract, max contract. I don't know. I just feel like there's something off this year. Everybody's trying to get paid, and he's like the main guy for the guy that's supposed to be a leader. He's not showing a really good example.
No, I agree. And look, like, I mean, I get it, right? Like, get paid, take care of your family. I'm not going to get mad at anybody for chasing paper. Like,
Yeah, but
do you? But, like, there are a lot of people that have an opportunity to build their brands, OG, Scottie, etc. Like, Scottie's getting endorsement deals right now. I mean, if you tank his value because you're so selfish, maybe he doesn't get those endorsement deals. Maybe he doesn't get a max contract in 3 years. There's no guarantees in the NBA that a guy who wins Rookie of the Year is absolutely going to sign a rookie max extension. Like, I mean, I could tell you he's definitely going to sign a rookie max extension, but, if he has an injury or something, he's not that good yet where he can guarantee that. He still has to work for this very hard. There are a lot of guys who are trying to, build their legacy. And it's like having empathy and patience and, most importantly, self-confidence, that you will get yours, that you will be fine. As long as you're winning, things are okay. I think it's just weird because it's like Fred VanVleet's an all-star. How poorly was he expecting to play that he wouldn't get like a really good contract next year, But I think it's just chasing that maximum bag. Maybe the Raptors offered him a very sizable contract this offseason and he didn't take it, and now he feels the need justified to get more. And maybe the Raptors played hardball on that contract offer, and now he needs to leverage a second team into actually wanting his services. And it's really difficult to do that when you're playing like this.
yeah, like
Right?
any team, like we're talking about trading him, but like any
Mhm.
team that trades for him has to sign him to a contract or it's going to be a rental. So it's like, what team, seeing how he's playing now, is going to trade pieces and
Yeah.
rely on him in the playoffs or whatever? Like, for example, the Pelicans, right?
Mhm.
I think that's like the most intriguing package out there. Like, are they willing to, trade their young pieces or draft picks or whatever,
Mhm.
and then pay him? They're already paying CJ. They're paying Zion.
Mhm.
Who else? I think they have another.
Well, I have a
Brandon
question for
Ingram.
you. There was a comment by G that I'm having trouble finding now, but it was a good one, where he said, Pascal Siakam doesn't really have a legit second option the way a lot of other first options do, and so it's really unfair to judge him until we can see him with a legitimate second option. So, do you agree with that statement? Like, do you feel like Pascal has like some next gear? Like, I'm open to hearing it.
The thing is, there has to be a better player better than Siakam. Like, he can't play as the best player. Like, it can't be another guy that's the same level or a little bit less. There has to be like a Kawhi type talent level over him. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. It's just because he knows, when he knows he's the best player on the team, he's gonna continue to shoot. He's gonna continue to force it
I
because
think he has a
thinks
lot of
that.
talent as a second option personally,
Yeah, that's what I
myself,
think.
because there's some elite skill sets there, being able to catch, drive, be a utility forward. He does a lot of things that Scottie Pippen used to do well. It's ironic because a lot of people compare him to Scottie Pippen, and it's like it's difficult to make that leap in your head because one of them's a small forward, one of them's a power forward. They look nothing alike. They're playing in totally different eras, but in a lot of ways, and I mean, let's be real, like Scottie Pippen, generational defenders, Pascal Siakam, not so much. But okay, so G says not true. Pascal had the most assists on the team. So G, like, here's the thing. Like, I would love for you to come on at some point because you've been a very vocal critic of this channel in the past, and now you're, trying to. Yeah, I guess you're here because you think that we're, you're realizing that I'm trying to be a little bit more fair. So I appreciate you being here, but I do want to understand this idea that fans have about more assists necessarily equals like better playmaker. I don't think that that's always the case. I think Jeff Dowtin's one of the best playmakers on this team. I can see it from every single time he's on the court that he just zips and the ball moves and he just finds guys and he has a sixth sense about it. And I've always seen this in him, but he doesn't rack up assists.
I think Siakam is he's a playmaker by force. He's not like a guy like Haliburton where he's like a playmaker by skill.
By nature,
he's getting
almost.
he's getting double team, triple team because they know nobody else can score. They're helping off of Fred VanVleet and Scottie Barnes from three, and then he's forced to pass it out because.
But it's like how bad are Siakam's teammates? Because like in a weird way, right? Like if I had to if I had to artificially manufacture 2K ratings for all these players, this is like the best team ever to be this bad. Like these are good players. Like these are really good players. I think Scottie Barnes is a legitimate second, third option on a fairly decent playoff team, in my opinion. Some people may not agree with that, but I think he's there. I think OG, same thing. Gary Trent Jr., easily like the best bench player on a good team.
I'll give you an example. Like
Sure.
the Lakers, how many people on this roster would they take right now?
All of them. Literally the
Exactly.
whole team. Like they would take like 9 to 10 guys off this team. And I mean, like, look at the Wizards. Like, who are they playing? Rui Hachimura. Would Rui Hachimura play for us? I doubt it. I doubt that very much. You know, there's like, I mean, this is not a bad team. It is playing a bad brand of basketball, but like, it's not a bad team. I think about Luka. Like, someone just said Luka plays that way or something. Like, look at Luka's teammates. Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, you think Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber are better than Chris Boucher and OG Anunoby? You think if you offered Chris Boucher and OG Anunoby to the Dallas Mavericks, they wouldn't take it and add like probably 4 first-round picks?
Yeah.
Like, the talent is there. So
Like,
I can
Malika
understand
wouldn't take-
why the front office believes that this can work. But here's the thing. Let's say I coached the Los Angeles Lakers 2001. Let's say Phil Jackson decides, you know, he wants to leave and I coach that team. And I'm like, "All right, guys, here's the thing. Shaq's going to be my isolation scorer. He's going to dribble on top of the paint. Kobe, you're going to be in the post the whole time." Well, now I don't have a good team anymore. I have all the talent that I had before, but now I'm just completely mismanaging and misusing it, right? And Robert Horry, we're just going to have you take fadeaways from half court the whole game. Like Rick Fox, we're not even going to bring you up the court. Like, there's a way to utilize a very good roster in a very bad way, in my opinion. I refuse to believe that this team is as bad as their record.
Yeah, it's that's why you don't think so many teams are calling them right now for all their
Absolutely.
players.
They must be sniffing blood in the water. If I was a rival GM, I would be offering the farm for OG Anunoby because I can see a real pathway to this guy being a consistent 20-point per game scorer who locks up on D. Like, do you know what that's a max asset.
Yeah.
You have a max player asset. If Scottie Barnes hit the open market right now, I'm pretty sure there's a team out there that'd be willing to sign him for the max, just based on potential alone. So, and Pascal Siakam would probably get a super max in the open market. So you have 3 max players. How many teams have 3 max players? How many? Miami Heat. Would Tyler Hero get a max today? Probably not, right? Bam would. Jimmy might.
I think Tyler Hero already got the max.
I mean, he did, but he wouldn't get it again. And quite frankly, I don't think there's another team in the world that would see him right now and be like, yeah, we're going to give Tyler Hero a freaking max contract.
Yeah.
And Tyler Hero, OG Anunoby, who would you take? I don't think it's close. I don't even think it's close between those two. And I think Tyler Hero is awesome. But it's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I just think that there's an overvaluation of one guy, right? And he's put in a role, the guy that we said we're not going to talk about, unfortunately. And because that player is in such a role that impacts all the other players, that just makes everybody else worse. And some people have accused me of just hating on Fred VanVleet or hating on somebody because they're like, well, how can you blame Fred for Scottie shooting like 2 for 10? And it's like,
Scottie is a second-year player.
Number one, that. But number two, if you play basketball, you know that there are just certain guys who always miss you on your spots. There are certain guys who just make it impossible to get your game going. I feel like the Raptors played like kind of a weird brand of basketball in the first quarter today, and it just felt like, I don't know. It's hard for me to know when I'm projecting because I obviously have very strong feelings about Fred VanVleet, and I can't, like, so every single time a player just walks past him without giving him high five, I'm like, yep, that guy hates him too, right? Like, I'm seeing things that aren't there, but it felt to me like the team really, really, really found its groove with him on the bench.
Yeah, and just they need to, like, the bottom line is they need to figure out, okay, are we gonna contend? Are we gonna try to improve?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna sell? And that's like my last point, but basically they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out soon because it's midway through the season, teams are calling, they're probably offering good things, and I guess we'll see what happens.
All right, Amir, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Cheers. All right, next up we've got Blackhawk 2K, who does not look like Blackhawk 2K right now. What? Oh, no, never mind. Lighting weird. We got Paul, then we got Marco, and then we got Parsa. Okay, Blackhawk 2K. Sorry, you had the light right up to your face, and it looked like you had a blonde beard, and you look like a white dude. And I was like, that's not Blackhawk 2K. What? Who is this? How you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. I'm sorry. I was writing. I said to myself, you know what? I have so many ideas in my head, and while I'm waiting in the queue, I better start writing this thing down before I lose everything. So how are you doing as well?
I'm good. How was your New Year's?
Safe and quiet.
That's
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 the only way to put it.
that's a good way to be. We watched
Yeah.
Nate Bargatze. He's a stand-up comic, and then we went to our friend's house, and we had a really awesome time. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy New Year's to you as well.
Happy New Year's.
My takes is probably a little bit different, but it probably is going to come around to be similar to what you're saying, but for different reason.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, today's game, first of all, the defense wasn't all too shoddy. It got loose in certain areas,
It did.
and that's
Yeah.
why they lost the game. But the effort was there primarily.
Oh yeah, they were getting into the passing lanes. They were making it They were making it hard to make passes. I mean, they forced Tyrese. They forced Tyrese, who's a very error-free player, and like not error-free, but like a very smart player, into some very bad situations. I liked how they guarded him. I liked how they guarded Ben Mathurin. I mean, let's be real. We're in 2022.
Would you say that the scouting
Mm-hmm.
was spot on if they're able to do this? Because they were able to do this to Chris Paul as well. And so would you say maybe they were better on their scouting on this game? However, on the execution, we fell off a little bit.
We've seen this team before too.
Yeah.
So I think you develop a bit of an understanding of teams. I mean, not only from the scouting, but also from playing them a couple of times. That's usually why it's so hard to beat teams in the playoffs, because they know all your shit.
The only counter I'll give you to that is the McConnell effect. I felt that what McConnell did, they should have been prepared for because of the previous encounter. We know McConnell, and for us to not expect this to come from McConnell is a failure on our part. In that
not
regard.
a good shooter at all. Like I mean, they called it out on the broadcast. They're like, "How many jump shots has he taken tonight?" And they're like, 0. Like he's taken none.
Exactly. But that's how they bet us the last time, which is they dig deep into their bench, pulled him out and a few other guys, and realized how to turn it up on us in the previous game, and now they just did it earlier. We should have said, well, hey, we need to because my next point was going to be, and it's going to tie back into that, as to how to stop the McConnell rush and everything. And for a good part, they actually caught on, but just a little late too, because he started to circle around as opposed to get in there and score. So they did get kind of shore that up. But I say Nick Nurse missed an opportunity in this game because, to me, length was how we were bothering this Pacers team. And there was a part there's a part there where you had Precious and Koloko there, and we were starting to get more defensive in there, even though Precious started out rocky in the first time he was on the court, but on the second part they started to dig in. What does Nick Nurse do? He pulls them out, brings in shorter players, VanVleet and Malachi. Worst decision. Something is wrong with Nick Nurse in recognizing the tide that's going on with the game. Why do you, when your team is pushing back, why do you pull them out once they're starting to push back? It's like 2 times I spotted that happening in the game, where we had enough length in the game, they're starting to make a pushback, and then he reverts to this lineup that makes us more susceptible to being caught up. Because this was kind of like a back and forth, but the back and forth was based upon having the right rotation in place.
It's hard for him. It's been this way for a long time now, though, right? There have been times where going with a shorter backcourt was hurting us, and we still stuck with it because that's just our starting backcourt. That's how we play basketball.
It's annoying. It's annoying as hell.
I agree.
I'm just gonna say it's annoying because you could see, like, okay, if Fred is coming off of the injury list, why go long with him? As a coach, make the decision to say, hey, because I know we're all down on Fred tonight, but in a way, I'm like, why are we down on Fred when it's the coach who is in control of who's on the floor? The coach should have made a decision to say, hey, He doesn't have it tonight. Pull him out and let's go.
I think
the coach
Fred
didn't do that.
I mean, I think like it's just at some point you're gonna have some players who are above the law. You know, let's be real. Like you are, right? LeBron is above the law, right? There's no amount of defensive plays that LeBron can take off that is going to force his coach to bench him in a critical moment of a game.
But LeBron is going to come through. LeBron's got better.
I mean, if you've watched LeBron, you know he's had bad games this year, like terrible games.
Let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this like this. Mm-hmm. Who would you take, a 75% LeBron or a 75% VanVleet?
You don't have to go to 75%. I would take a 25% LeBron over 100% VanVleet.
Okay, you get my point. You get my point, right? So this is where we are. Some like I'm expecting the coach to know his players and say, hey, this person doesn't have it 100%, and I have to make the executive. If the coach can't make this decision, what's the use of him coaching the team? I'm expecting the coach to have that power. That's my problem.
Here's the thing. So, sorry, do you have me on headphones? You do, right?
No, it's a cell phone.
Because I'm hearing myself a little bit.
It's a cell phone. I don't have. I can plug in a headphone. Give me a minute here.
Hold on. I'm gonna mute your mic while I talk, and then I'll unmute your mic just so that way I can't hear you. Okay. So basically, the way I see this is you have there was something that came out the other day where Nick Nurse and he had a real honest film session. That's what everyone was talking about. Oh, we had a really honest film session, and they started talking about this because it's very interesting to me how often I'll bring up something in one of these videos and then I'll have to hear about it the next day on the Toronto Star. It's really weird. I want to know who's watching these videos because I literally went into an explanation in my last live about how these film sessions in the NBA, when we were doing the thing with Leo, if you remember, and I was like, they're not the way you think they are. They're not like the coach is like telling this guy, like, you made this mistake and that mistake. And then next thing you know, they have exactly that type of film session, an honest film session where they talk about things honestly. And you're just like hearing this, I think it was Fred or whoever talk about, or Gary talk about how, in normal film sessions, there's like, I think it was Fred, he said coach does a really good job of protecting egos and, not calling guys out directly about stuff, but it was good to have one of these and, I'm going to rock with coach and whatever. And so I think that there is this notion of like, has this even been brought up? And in a lot of ways, the reason that I'm making these like low light films is because I don't want people to be able to duck it anymore. Right.
Well, that's a good thought. And there's also, there's another positive thing that I saw when you were doing those films, right? And I'm going to go back on my other point, because another point that I was going to say about those films is, since Fred was so welcoming of it, then he should be welcoming of Nick Nurse doing another one with him after this game to say, hey, step it up over here, and here. But the other point I want to highlight on is, when you do those films, there are, I'm a strong proponent for Pascal, but there are some things that I would prefer him not to do to make his career better, in a sense of longevity. I don't like when he throws his body. I'm thinking that in the long term, that's going to damage him. So I like how Julius Randle can get closer to the bucket and bounce off of the backboard, as opposed to way Pascal
beast,
does it.
Though. He's a beast. Yeah, he's a ground beast.
Could you imagine if Pascal did it that way?
I can't, because that's not his body type, right? Like it's like saying, well, could I imagine if Zach Randolph played like Chris Bosh? And it's like totally different.
They're not that different. They're not that far. And Pascal's a lot stronger than we give him through. I'm just thinking he would do better without throwing himself on the
He's gotten stronger. He's gotten a lot stronger. But the way that, Pascal's great at drawing contact because he's great at getting a step of separation on whoever's guarding him. He's super fast, and he's adjusted his handle to get to a point where he's super crafty too. Yeah. So he can just change direction, and it's, I hate to say it, it's a lot. He's a bit of a one-trick pony, right? If it's not the spin, it's a dig right through the hands. If he's drawing contact, if he doesn't have that, it's a fade away. I'm telling you, there are teams that can stop this. I was saying this last year with Fred VanVleet. I'm saying
Oh,
this year.
we saw that with the Memphis. However, they didn't really stop. They just reduced him. They were able to. I mean, he still was able to
When a team
score.
decide, like, look,
Yeah.
Memphis put Jaren Jackson Jr. on Scottie Barnes for whatever reason. He is their best defender, in my opinion. And they put Dylan Brooks on Pascal to be disruptive and annoying and whatever. And honestly, if they swap those matchups, I don't think Pascal Siakam has a chance. Like, Jaren Jackson Jr. is just special defensively. I think Bam Adebayo is special defensively. Jonathan Isaac. There's like some guys in the league where I'm like, yeah, one-on-one, I don't trust Pascal to score more than 50% on these plays. And because he doesn't take a lot of threes, below 50% is a really bad scoring output for a first option. So it's like, it's a great thing that he's developed as a playmaker, right? I see a pathway to him becoming a really decent first option, right?
Yeah.
But not Luka, Embiid, Jokic level.
Well, I don't think he needs to be.
Sure,
I mean,
he could be Jimmy Butler.
The narrative.
Jimmy Butler-esque, right? And Jimmy Butler as a first option led his team to the Miami Heat, and I led his team to the finals. And I don't
Jimmy
think
Butler got a craftiness to him, which Pascal doesn't have that craftiness to him.
That's probably true too. Yeah. No, I'm not comparing him. I'm just saying that Jimmy's much older. At this point, I mean, we forget that Jimmy Butler was on that team, the Philly team that we beat.
Right.
So was Ben Simmons. So was Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. That's a stacked team. So we beat a team full of guys who were first picks, first options, top 3 picks, etc. That was supposed to win a championship that year. And I just think, like, if Pascal continues to evolve as a shooter and he continues to expand his bag, that maybe he could be the type of first option that Jimmy Butler has been for the last 3-4 years. And that's not a bad player to have on your team. Yeah. I just think that when you bump into one of those teams that has a guy who's just better at playing that kind of way, like if you go toe-to-toe, Pascal versus Jason Tatum, you're going to lose in 4 games. It's just not going to work.
But we're in a game of 5. So even if Pascal runs into an issue, you have 4 other guys to, and that's what the problem is right now.
In theory,
our 4 other guys have to pick up the pick up the amount of work. Yeah, pick up the slack, basically. And in this game, they did pick up the slack. I know we're calling out Fred, but I'm really looking at the bench, because if our bench was producing more, we win this game.
But see, like Blackhawk 2K, the thing is that I think every offense is designed to generate a possession, like opportunities for somebody, right?
Right.
Some offenses generate great clean, mismatches, great isolation opportunities, great open corner threes, great, pin downs. Like, I'm just saying there's so many functioning points in an offense that's supposed to design to be suiting somebody's scoring opportunity. And too often this offense is catering towards Fred and Pascal to get their shots. And so it's like, how does the other team find their rhythm when these two guys are?
That's what I was going to get at. I was going to get, because look at the Pacers tonight. Look how much they produced.
Absolutely.
I mean, their bench was like 54 or 59 points from their bench alone.
Look at Memphis. Memphis is another example.
Yeah, but we only needed 20 points just to keep up with them.
But I think that's sort of misguided, because it's like, when those bench guys come in, right? Are they getting consistent minutes? So
again, that comes back to the coach.
Well, I mean, you put Gary Trent Jr. in your starting lineup, and I don't agree with that at all. Putting Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet in the starting lineup on the same time. Like, I seem to recall him putting Gary Trent Jr. on the bench when Gary and Scottie came back. You remember that?
But I remember you stating that you want more shooters on this team. So when they did that, there you go. You have
movement
three
shooters.
You got
Gary played great tonight. I loved everything about him tonight, and I've mentioned it 3 times in the show already. I'm not going to keep harping on it, but I am flipping on this guy hard. Like, I like him. Like, I like what he's doing.
He can produce.
He's scoring within rhythm. He's kind of perfected being a chucker.
Yeah.
So he does take every shot. Like, no shit.
But he's been a little bit
better
shots lately.
I don't even look. Here's the thing. Like, I don't judge players for missing shots. I don't care if you miss every shot you take. I just care that you take good shots. He took good shots tonight. They were in rhythm. They're his shots. I've seen him make those shots. They're in rhythm. They're kind of like flowing. He didn't take stupid shots. You know who took stupid shots tonight? Don't hate me, comment section. Siakam. Siakam took a lot of stupid shots tonight. There was a completely blatantly stupid open three that he took, and it was like even Alvin Williams was like, that's too fast. That's the problem. It's like Fred and Pascal, they have a disruptive
Yeah, but even
element.
OG had some shots where it's like
OG did too. OG did too.
You fired off the shot too quick. Because it was a wide open shot. He just needed to take a few seconds more and really line it up. So why were you rushed? So I would say they were nervous. I don't know if they were nervous. I don't even want to say they were nervous. But the shots were too quick when they were wide open. They needed to gather themselves.
Yeah. If someone says Siakam took one bad shot, he was aggressive. I don't know about that. I'll have to look at the tape. I don't think
he was aggressive,
took one
but
bad
there was a shot. I know the shot you were talking about, and he fired it off too quick.
But it was like it's not even like that he fired it off too quick. It's like, where were you in the game? You were just mounting a comeback. You were right there. And it's in the fourth quarter. It's like some turnovers are going to cost you more than others. They break your back, especially on the road. You have to be perfect in those moments.
So I'll give you the one that was detrimental to the game.
Okay.
Fred had the ball, goes up court, fires it off without even the rest of the team, getting in position for defensive.
Oh, that was the worst.
That was the one
he didn't even touch rim.
Right. To me, it was like, dude, why did you give? It's like if you're exhausted, just come out of the game because.
Yes.
I mean, it was like totally a waste of a shot. I'm not trying to badger Fred. I know like as everybody, but I'm just saying like that was not a smart move.
Look at the form on that shot. Right. That shot is etched in my memory. I'm actually really sad that you brought it up again because it's like he wasn't even set.
But that's the things that need to be corrected. Like you have to value.
But how do you correct that?
Possession.
I mean, this guy's gonna bet on himself 100 times out of 100. He's always gonna fire those shots. He always has. He always will.
We knew this.
Yes.
I know this because I can't remember if it was this season or last season. We had a situation where we had a close game, and all we needed to do was get a 2, and Fred still fired off for a 3. And then Fred goes, "I'm always going to go for it," because he's looking to get that emotion.
Yeah.
When closing out the game of hitting a 3. Sometimes the 3s are not necessary. Sometimes a 2 would do. You can win the game with just going for the 2 instead of being this. It's like you're searching for a high.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, look, I think we just have such an obsession with box scores as a fan base. And not just, you know what it is? I think it's fantasy sports and sports betting, parlays, all these, that's all we see. Like I was reading, like I kind of searched out Twitter and I was like trying to find out like and people were like, I'm not betting on Scottie anymore. He screwed me over in the third quarter parlay. And I'm just like, oh, that's why these people are like this, because they have this obsession with these counting stats. So there's Chad Bernard here in the comments, and I've pinned this comment for a reason, not because I agree with it, not because I think it's coherent, not because I think it's sane. So the comment is, I am still waiting to see anything that makes Scottie Barnes generational talent and not at best a bigger version of Draymond Green.
Well, how do you tell which way he's going anyways?
How do I tell?
How do you from this statement, the first one, like I'm a proponent of let a person grow to the way they're supposed to grow. Let's not put it on a person.
I think it's
as to what we think they should be.
I mean, I think you got to take people at face value. Like that old Maya Angelou quote: "When people show you who they are, believe them." I think Scottie Barnes has shown us in big moments that he can take over games.
Okay, but that's fine. But I
saw it in Dallas. I saw it in Brooklyn. I mean, let's be real. How many fourth quarters has Draymond Green taken over in his life?
He doesn't.
Straight up. Exactly. He does not. I've seen him maybe take over one where he scored like 8 points. So saying that Scottie Barnes is a bigger Draymond Green is to me, that's telling me you don't understand basketball.
Well, Draymond Green doesn't score 23 points. I mean, like at the beginning of this game, I didn't even see 23 points in the half, and then all of a sudden he shot up to 23. That's not Draymond Green.
Exactly. And it's like the way this guy gets advantages. Like, look, here's the thing. People like they become obsessed with hops, vertical, bag, smooth shot. because that's kind of just how we've grown accustomed to seeing guys get their offense off in the past, right?
Right.
But look at who is actually thriving in the NBA. Tyrese Haliburton, not a bursty athlete at all, okay? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also not a bursty athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not a great athlete. He's not like dunking over people's heads. Luka Doncic, one of the slowest players in the NBA. Nikola Jokic, one of the slowest players in the NBA. So what I'm seeing more and more is that as the pace increases, as playmaking becomes more important, the best players in the league also usually happen to be the best passers and playmakers for others and for themselves. And they usually have one clear way to gain separation, be it a shot like Steph Curry. Steph Curry, not a great athlete either. I mean, he's a great athlete by human terms, but he's not a great athlete by NBA standards, right? So I look at guys like this and I'm like, how do you get your space? Well, with OG, sometimes it's not obvious how he gets his space. With Fred, he doesn't get any space because he's not quick enough. Scottie, it's very clear to me how this guy gets space. He can carve space against virtually anyone. Put him in the post, he can score. He can score in the post. Put him in an isolation. If this guy can just figure his jump shot out. So I, in my hypothetical mind, imagine a Scottie Barnes with a comfortable jump shot, and I'm envisioning a superstar. That one trait. It's the same way that I envision Christian Koloko with added strength being a serviceable starter. It's the same way.
Yeah.
So you just have to guess. I mean, I'm guessing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only challenge I have with that statement there is we're rating people as to whether they're a good or they're not a good athlete, but they're able to pass and score and do great. Let's take into consideration that these guys put the time in. They like we can't put Pascal on the same level because he started at a different starting point than most of these guys.
But he's 28 now, so I think
even if we can't
stop.
we can't look at the age, and I'll say this again because the knowledge that Luka has picked up, Pascal has not picked it up because he hasn't.
He will never pick that up. He will never see the game like Luka.
He will get smarter though. He
can get smarter. Don't get me wrong. He can get smarter, but he's peaking athletically right now. There is a gradual, look, Michael Jordan probably understands the game better today than he did when he was 36 playing with the Bulls. But Michael Jordan cannot do what he did when he was 30, because athletically he has declined to a critical mass. The same thing with Vince Carter, right? I'm sure Vince Carter became a better playmaker as he got older. A lot of dudes do become better playmakers as they become older, right? Problem is, at some point, you have to intersect your mental and mental, spiritual prime with your physical prime, and that's how you develop great primes like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, etc., Kobe Bryant, all the greats, right? Problem is, Pascal did not pick up the game at a young age, so he's playing catch up now, and he's done a great job. He's probably come further than anyone could have expected, himself included.
He surpassed that. He's
grinded. He's worked hard. He's worked harder than probably any player in the NBA sustained over the last 6 years. I was just making that comment about Brandon Ingram versus him, and look at where they were 6 years ago. And yeah, Brandon Ingram's a younger player, but Pascal Siakam's come a longer way, and that's no shade on Brandon Ingram. He's a hell of a player, but Siakam started out behind him, and he's ended up ahead of him somehow. And that's crazy.
So based upon that, I don't think Pascal has still tapped into all of his physical attributes because he doesn't even know himself. I can guarantee this to you that he does not, because he found out more about himself when he went through that injury than he knew, because you don't know yourself until you see failure or some kind of
he's seen a lot of failure.
Step back. No, when I'm talking failure, I'm not talking about in scores or stuff like that. I'm talking about, okay, he got hurt. He thought it was invincible. And when he got to that point, that's when he found out, oh wait, my body is taking a beating here. I'm surprised that I can't handle this. He thought it was a simple thing of you take an aspirin and you get over it.
Well, he did mention that he was very scared of getting a surgery.
Because it's his first time.
He's also mentioned in the past that he was afraid of streetcars. So, and he was obviously very, very terrified of the pandemic, which, I mean, I can only imagine. I talked to somebody who grew up in West Africa, and they were telling me, they're like, you have no idea the connotations that we have when we hear pandemic,
Right.
and you have when you hear pandemics. You never
Right.
dealt with like life-threatening
Correct.
diseases, and so I had to sort of take a moment and just be like, okay, well, if I had grown up in a certain situation, sometimes it's important as a human being to try to understand how does the other person see the world, and you can't imprint your shit onto them. You know what I mean? Like a doctor can't look at me and be like, why don't you know everything about medical science? It's like, I didn't study it. I don't know. But the openness to experience stuff, the creativity, I don't see creativity in Pascal Siakam's game. The way that I see it.
He's learning it. He's
learning
it.
He's learning it. Don't get me wrong. But what I draw the line is when people try to say, because you pick up the game at 16, 17, that you just have this way later peak. Because I don't think that's true. And that's held up.
I would say for most athletes, but I'm looking at him.
But it's really not.
He's different body-wise.
It's not, though, because really, like, you got to think about this. Hakeem Olajuwon picked up the game at what, 17, right?
Yeah.
He was the first overall pick at age 21.
Right.
Tim Duncan picked up the game at what, 16, 15? When his okay, so he picked up the game way later than OG Anunoby did. But by the age of 20, Tim Duncan was ahead of OG Anunoby will ever be. Tim Duncan would have been the number one pick had he come out a year before. He was the number one pick. He entered the league and immediately took David fucking Robinson, who was like one of the best players in the NBA, off the top shelf. He was one of the best rookies of all time. That's a guy who picked up basketball, 7 years prior. So you can't, and he peaked, Tim Duncan peaked around 25, 26. Hakeem Olajuwon peaked around 29, 30. Kevin Durant peaked around 28. But he picked up basketball when he was 5. So I can't tell you that Scottie Barnes is not going to peak at 24 like Vince Carter did, or that Scottie Barnes might peak at 34 like somebody else did. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult to map out these peaks, but what I can tell you is this concept of 10,000 hours has been debunked over and over, that it doesn't just keep going and going and going. There's a fall off. At some point you put in enough work. For me right now, I'm an editor, right? So once I put in 10,000 hours and this other dude who started editing 2 years after me puts in 10,000 hours, it doesn't really matter that he started 2 years later. At some point, we're going to level off, right? Okay. Otherwise, the greatest filmmaker every single year would be 150 years old, right?
Right.
But no, sometimes a 22-year-old comes and wins an Oscar because the talent element comes into it. And I'm just saying, I think Scottie has all those creative gifts that I saw in early Nikola Jokic, in early Tyrese Haliburton. I love how he sees the game.
Right. His potential is high.
So playmaking to me is a more moldable and more important, critical success, long-term success skill set than scoring bag. I can work with Scottie in an off season and develop counters, dribble counters, fadeaways. I can do that. But I cannot work with a player and teach them how to read the game and process information really quickly. That I cannot do. I cannot work with Pascal Siakam and be like, hey, this situation here, this situation is going to require you to pause for 1 second and then go. There's a million such variables, and it comes down to
they
feel.
Tried that today. I don't know if you noticed in the game, somebody was counting 3, 2, 1. That I think that came out of the film session because they were trying to tell Pascal to move quicker.
Really?
I don't know if you heard
I
it
heard
in the game.
I heard it, but I thought it was one of the fans trying to trip him up on the shot clock.
No, it was a coach. Was
it Jamal McGlure? He was pretty chatty today.
It was
big cat.
I thought it was Nick or one of them. That's trying to, because they were trying to get so. And this is what I'm saying. Maybe that film session. Okay, Nick is probably saying he's playing good cop, bad cop. He may have given a little bit to Pascal. Fred didn't get the bad cop.
I doubt it.
Fred didn't get the bad cop. No, there were some moves there that today I was like, hey, they're really sharing the ball and moving pretty good between Pascal and Gary. I know everybody's talking about with Fred, but no, I saw some things there that looked pretty good.
I mean, I don't know.
The only issue to me was that he pulled out the bigs and brought in Flynn and Fred when they were making a punch back. I think if Nick was being smart, and I would say the other way that he could have been even smarter was bringing in Jeff Dowtin, because he has long arms. I think that would have given the Pacers even more
It would have
problems.
helped. It would have helped.
Yeah.
The disruption was helping, and they're a
Yeah.
young team. They play 2 rookies, major minutes. They have a couple of guys who are young, maybe not the most experienced guys. I mean, who are we
Right.
playing against? I mean, like, my God, we're playing against a lot of cast-offs. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
guys O'Shea Brissett. That was a guy who couldn't get minutes
That's our
for
boy.
us. You
That's
know,
our boy.
Ben Mathurin, a rookie,
Yeah.
Andrew Nembhard, a 2nd-round pick. Like, we did not face a juggernaut team tonight, but we sure the hell
Right.
like to make this team feel like a
Hey,
juggernaut.
they
Anyway,
make
Blackhawks
Canada
2K.
look good.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thank
All
you so
right.
much for coming on.
right.
Happy New Year to you,
Happy New
and
Year's.
always an insightful conversation. Whether we
Yes.
agree or disagree, I'm
Yeah.
sure that we learn
Yeah.
a lot, or at least I learn a lot.
Well, at least we got multiple opinions.
Yep.
All right.
All right,
Take
cheers,
care.
man.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, next up we got Marco, Parsa, and Paul. All righty, Marco, how's it going?
Not too bad. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
With the unreliable shooting, the rebounds are extremely important to this team. We talk a lot about Scottie and Fred and all that and Pascal, but Pascal, Scottie, OG, and the rest of the Raptors still having serious trouble with aggressive, experienced big centers around the rim with rebounds and finishes. The domination by Steven Adams with that Grizzly game, the domination by Zubac with the Clippers game. And today, it's been focusing my attention. And today, more so than Miles Turner, but Jalen Smith came in as Miles Turner alternative. And I know there was a block by Koloko, but for the most part, Jalen Smith was winning the battle around the rim, in my opinion. But like I said, he wasn't quite as dominant as Steven Adams or Zubac. Like, that was a different level of dominance, but still was dominating enough that there was an impact to the game. So what I want is, if in the next game, if Precious makes any difference. Now, he's 6'8", but you know, he can do rebounding pretty good, as he proved against the Miami Heat. But I want to see if he makes any difference with Brook Lopez dominating around the rim, despite Brook being a good three-point shooter. So my eyes are going to be on Brook Lopez for the upcoming game with the Bucks, to see if this ongoing trend occurs, because it's the hole in the game. It really is. I mean, it's kind of been talked about in the past, but we brush it over with the
hold on, let me just understand this. Do you think the center position is the hole in the game? Is that
I think with aggressive, experienced big centers. Once again, if Jared Allen were more aggressive towards the Raptors, you'd see that impact. That would turn around. The Cavaliers would have a lot more success with the Raptors. What I'd like is for even yourself, if you want to go back and do the video, what Steven Adams did to us, or Zubac did to us, and even take a look at Jalen Smith. But the Grizzly game and the Clippers game specifically highlighted, if you bring the right center who's aggressive and experienced, he's going to. All
right. So here's the thing, Marco. I mean, you know, I appreciate you calling back, and that's really awesome. Last time, I think we talked about Kyle Kuzma and all that stuff. If you're the same Marco, I think you are. I once again find myself not agreeing with your take about centers or having to play big bruisers. That's not the way the game is going. It's not necessarily the way the Raptors play. So I'm just going to disagree. I think OG and Scottie did a pretty good job guarding DeAndre Ayton last game. I think that should prove that.
Prediction then? Are you
sure.
Up for predictions?
Close it out on prediction, Marco. What's up?
So you've got your point of view. I've got mine. Everybody can watch this. I encourage everybody to watch Brook Lopez in the Bucks game, dominating the Raptors team around the rim with rebounds.
Brook Lopez is not a great rebounder. Brook Lopez is a great defender and a great shooter.
He's going to dominate against the Raptors.
This is not, buddy. He's not Brook Lopez from 2012. Like, I actually know Brook Lopez. It's like,
this is my prediction.
It doesn't.
We can watch it in the next game. I'm predicting to you that Brook Lopez will dominate around the rim against this Raptors team. The only outside thing is whether or not Precious Achiuwa makes a difference in that.
We are in an age of 115 and 117 offensive ratings. I mean, the expansion of this game to the 3-point line, trust me, there are a lot of teams that are willing.
Raptors don't do 3 points. very well.
Okay, well, that's the
left.
actual problem, not a lack of Shaquille O'Neal, right? So like that's where I'm at. Anyway, Marco, I want to appreciate you calling in. I don't agree, but yeah, we're
Okay,
gonna
will you comment on it next show?
If Brook Lopez beats
Dominates.
us,
Yeah, if he dominates in around the rim, will you comment on it? Because
Yeah,
I mean, you
sure.
focus a lot on Scottie and Fred, but once again, really, like I said, after the beating that the Grizzlies and the Clippers did to us, you know, you should be looking at that problem. That is a serious problem.
Oh
But
my
anyway,
gosh.
you take it.
I don't agree. Like
All right,
these
fair
2
enough.
points and getting beat up around the rim. This isn't 1997. I don't care about this. Like, yes, getting killed on the offensive rebounds and flinging open to one of the worst things about offensive rebounds is not putbacks. It's open threes. That's the worst part about offensive rebounds is how many open threes you give off of the scramble. So, like, I understand this talking point. I don't know where the hell it comes from. I don't care like who keeps saying it, but like this Will
Raptors
Lou and all these people are like, oh my God, if we just had a center, if
I
we
don't
just had
care
a center.
about Will Lou and the others. I see it with my own eyes. That's why we lost the Clippers game. That's why we lost the Grizzlies game.
I don't think that's why we lost. But anyways,
Okay.
all right, thanks a lot. And yes, if Brook Lopez goes off and dominates in the post, like if he turns back the clock and he starts playing in a completely different way than
All
he's been
right,
playing,
talk about it.
I will definitely talk about it. Thank you, Marco. Appreciate it. Oh my God. Okay, Parsa, what's up, man? Talk to me.
What's good, man? How you been?
I'm good. I'm good.
This entire show, there's been a lot of heat on FVV, and rightfully so. So I'm not gonna like stick on that a lot. I feel like Masai should get a lot more heat than he does not get, because the roster construction with the Raptors squad, and take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am a Celtics fan, so I'm not the most in tune with Raptors content. But I do feel like Masai does not get the heat he deserves for Raptors roster construction.
Okay. So I think that the roster as constructed, given the absolute decimation of losing that championship core, and that was quite devastating, losing Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, I think this is a pretty well constructed team, personally. I understand why you may feel like, oh, well, nobody can hit threes, and I think that has a lot to do with play style. I look at these guys' career numbers. I look at guys like Malachi Flynn, Otto Porter, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet. That's a lot of 3-point shooting. That's a lot of 3-point shooting. In your top, Chris Boucher, you know, that's a stretch big. They didn't sign dudes who never shot threes and then were like, oh shit, I can't believe we don't shoot threes. No, they signed guys who've been shooting threes at a seriously okay clip. Like basically we're at a point now where, I mean, the last caller seemed to like, is sort of irritating me so much that people don't seem to understand that 3 points are worth more than 2 points. Like open 3-point shooters. Do you know how, like, here's an interesting factoid. Over the last 3 years, I believe there have been close to 155 players, rotational players in the NBA, who can hit at least 35% or above on open threes. Right. That is an above average pace for an offense. Because when you do the math on it, if an average offensive possession, we're playing like 100 possessions sometimes now in a game. If an average offensive possession results in like, I don't know, 1 point, well then immediately 35% on an open three. If you can generate open threes for those shooters, like you're going to win that game. If you can do that 12 times, you've got such a huge advantage over the other team that's not doing that as well. So I just think that the Raptors have like overwhelmingly positive shooters. Otto Porter is an overwhelmingly positive shooter. Fred VanVleet coming to the season, Gary Trent Jr. These guys, even, Pascal Siakam in the past, 37% in the championship year. I keep quoting that, but he's not a non-shooter. They're not playing, like they're technically playing 5 capable shooters, with Scottie Barnes being the weakest shooter in the bunch. And he's a 30% 3-point shooter, right?
Yeah, the shooting is good when you like compare individual players.
So what do you think Masai should have done? I guess maybe I should ask you a question. What do you think Masai should have done?
I've been saying this a lot before FEV's cold streak, or like this entire season basically. I just didn't feel like Fred VanVleet mixed in with the timeline that Scottie Barnes and the rest of the players were in. And I felt like he should have been traded off that team in the offseason, to be honest. And I still feel like they should try to get rid of him as soon as they can. And Gary Trent being one of the better scorers and shooters on that Raptors roster, I still feel like, and he's an unrestricted free agent, right? this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like you have to pack some of these players up because
So,
you're
wait.
not in contention to get like a super high lottery pick either. You're like in the mix of the plane area, I believe, like 11 seed, 10 seed. So you got to kind of pick a direction. Where do you want to go with this? Do you want to lose Trent and possibly Fred VanVleet for absolutely nothing? And then kind of like prolong some tanking, a bunch of tanking seasons, which you probably don't want to do with Scottie Barnes getting older. Siakam is eventually going to hit a stage where he peaks, right?
Right.
So you have to, if you're Masai, you have to pick a direction. And considering how talented the league is, and you see teams like the Wolves, Bulls, like super dysfunctional teams with superstar talent that you can pair around OG, Scottie, Siakam. You gotta be aggressive at this point if you're Masai. You can't just hang back and expect, we'll figure out something in the off season, because you're just going to end up coming back a lot worse and then just prolonging a bunch of tanking that's not going to help you out in the future.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I don't necessarily think that Masai and Bobby have done a bad job of putting this roster together, but I understand why it feels like that to a lot of people. No one's perfect, but this front office is as top five gets in terms of just putting together players that I think make sense. I think they have blind spots, probably due to nostalgia, and I think that blind spot's name is Fred VanVleet, personally. And hopefully they realize that, because they have realized it before with other guys that they had blind spots for, like DeMar and Kyle, that I'm sure they loved, guys like Danny Green. Like, I'm sure they loved, this is an organization that has shown me over and over again that when it comes time to sign dollars and cents to paper, they can be rational, more rational than a lot of other teams, more rational than Miami Heat, for instance. So I hope to see some direction from this team, or at least a presser where Masai can calm our nerves and give us some idea of where this is going. But if I were to make a pie chart of all the blame that I would put on for this season, I think less than 10% goes on the front office. That's just me. Anyway, Parson, thanks a lot for calling in, man. A happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, bro.
Cheers. Okay, Paul, thank you so much for waiting. How are you doing? You've got sort of a No Country for Old Men lighting setup going on right now. Are you about to ask me what's the most I ever lost in a coin toss? Why can I not hear you? Hello? I still can't hear you, man. Nope, can't hear you. You want to try leaving and coming back? Yeah, just try to leave and come back. In the meanwhile, we're going to go to Alex. Alex, how are you? Hello?
Hey, Rob. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I don't know if you were watching Indiana's broadcast at all today.
I wasn't. What'd they say?
There was actually a Freudian slip. They Fred took a shot, and they called him Fred VanVleet.
Okay. That's funny.
But yeah, like I just wanted to like piggyback on what you were saying about the media, especially Toronto media, and how we treat narratives and how we build these myths, these parables about players. Because I work on Wall Street. Like, I don't live in Toronto.
Nice. Are you from Toronto? Are you from Toronto?
Yeah, I'm from Toronto.
But you live in New York.
Yeah, so
that's so cool. I used to work for a hedge fund. I used to work in Boston. For RECAP. Yeah,
that's really cool. So like I'm really disconnected from the Toronto media, the entire ecosystem around that, and
yeah, like, but I'm sure you're tuned into CNN and MSNBC and everything they're doing with Sam Bankman-Fried. I mean, like the media everywhere is kind of the same, are they?
Yeah,
not?
I mean,
to lesser degrees.
You worked at a hedge fund, right? Like you have that on screens like the entire day. But like what I was trying to say is that, like when you work at these places, you have people from all over, right? Like so I interact with like people from Florida. I interact with people from like California, Indiana, etc. Right? And so they keep me pretty grounded about the Raptors, right? So like like if I'm like asking a Portland guy, if I can trade you Fred VanVleet, You know, they're not going to be like,
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, that guy.
I'm dying laughing. I don't think I've ever died laughing on this because it's just like it's so true what you're saying, right? Like you
Yeah,
talk to random people from Florida, as you said, Florida or California, they're going to give you a completely real perspective on how the rest of the league values these guys.
exactly. And this is why like your show, it's so cathartic to me, because when I go on like Reddit, when I go on Real GM, all these forums, right? I just see people talking about Freddie All-Star. I see Finals MVP.
Yo, real GM used to be really good at some point, right? Like at one point I was like, or maybe I was stupid back then. I have no idea. But like at one point I used to go to that place as like a real, I want to call it like a beacon of hope for basketball fans. Like, you know, it was critical thought. It wasn't like Yahoo chats. Like I don't remember like what was really around in 2008. And then I think for a while it was Raptors Republic forums. But it's like I don't know. The other day I was asking somebody, I'm like, what's a great place to talk hoops? And they were like, Pensari basketball comment section is a great place to talk hoops. And I was like, yo, like that's pretty crazy that you're saying that to me. I run Pensari basketball. They didn't realize out of context who I was. But that was very staggering to me that there isn't a space for people to just be real about this team. And I don't know if everyone's in denial or something, but it's like objectively, it's hard to look at this product on the court and not wake up to the bullshit. I mean, I don't know how long you can keep lying about this guy being an all-star.
I think
Like there are other teams that wouldn't give you like their third stringers and picks for this guy.
I think people came in with high expectations. They haven't updated their priors.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still, in their mind, they're still thinking, oh, this is a 48 win team, 50 win team. There's this bad luck, right? We have injuries. Freddie's in a slump. By the way, if you look at advanced stats, right? A lot of people talk about like plus minus advanced stats with like Fred.
Mm-hmm.
There's also another advanced stat. Since 2011, guess who is one of the worst inside scorers in the NBA?
Who?
Fred VanVleet. He's in the top 3. So that's, I mean, if you think about it that way, that's another advanced stat that he excels at.
It's like I think of so many players that in league history, and I've studied a lot of these like classic teams, and I'll go and like chart out possessions for Jerry Stackhouse, like, 2001, and I'll find out what kind of a player he was. And I'm just deeply fascinated by basketball. It's like my whole life, just deeply fascinated. And so I often wonder how the things we measure distort our perception of things we don't measure. Like, I think about how differently this team plays because Fred VanVleet's on the court. I think about how much more differently they could play if he was. I hear all these people challenging this notion of, oh, Vision 6'9" it's not working. It's like, you haven't tried, really. You haven't tried. Calling this guy 6'9" by heart doesn't make any sense to me. It's just, useless. It's, it's stupid. He's not 6'9". He cannot switch down to a big. And as good as he's been, like, I've been very fair. I think I've been pretty fair about his strengths and weaknesses. I think he's a pretty good on-ball defender sometimes in certain matchups. I think he can be pesky around screens. I think when he's going right, he's a pretty okay facilitator. He takes care of the ball. He doesn't make too many mistakes. He's usually a pretty good shooter, and he takes a lot of really good shots. Not at the right time, not the right quality, but like in terms of the places he scores from, like he generates good offense. But it's like, how does he impact his teammates? You know what I mean? Like, is that what box plus minus is supposed to measure? But then what if the entire system is catered to make him work? Then how can you judge the system? And how can you judge him independent of the system? I feel like I need to see this guy go and play off the bench for Atlanta to get a clear perspective on who he is as a player. I need to see a system not designed by Nick Nurse where I can get a real objective idea of who he is, because I see a system that is absolutely tailor-made to fit players like him. I see a style of play and a roster which is built to facilitate. I see picks being set for him all the time. I very rarely have seen picks set for Scottie Barnes. I have very rarely seen double picks set for Scottie Barnes to get open on a shot. No, with Scottie and OG, it's like, go fuck yourself. Like, go get it yourself, right? But like for Fred, it's like, okay, we're gonna run all these actions. All our playbook is designed to get Fred and Pascal open. So it's just like, to me, it's a little bit frustrating. And it's like, yes, naturally, the people you set up are the ones who are going to thrive. It would be like, yeah.
I think you're right about a lot of things. They're just early, man. Like, if people came in with like a different expectation of where the team was at, I think they would be a lot more fair about like criticizing you. I think you're getting a lot of unfair criticism because in their eyes, it's still Freddie All-Star. It's still
That's the thing.
DPOY.
It is early. I'm generally early. That I have always admitted that. I'm always going to be overzealous about what I see and what I project, and once in a while I'm going to crash and burn. I'm just going to be wrong, right? But I was calling DeMar DeRozan better than Tyreek Evans after his rookie season, and for an entire year and a half I looked like an absolute idiot, right? But eventually I was right. So it's like, it does wear out, but it's like I'm trying over the years to make strong opinions, to have strong opinions about things, to make strong, bold projections, and then to shit test them aggressively so that I can get better at making strong projections. Because being able to project is really a key skill in basketball. If you could do that as a draft analyst, you would have a billion, Twitter followers if everyone knew that your mock board was the best one because you just had that eye for talent. So I'm just consistently trying to see, what have I missed in players that have exceeded my expectations, and what have I missed in players that have fallen way short of where I thought they would be. Yes, I usually am early. I was on the trade Fred VanVleet train November last year. That was when he was lighting up the league. I got to look like an absolute idiot for about 3 months, and then he fell off a cliff, and now I've looked like a genius for a year. It's the same thing with Pascal to some extent, but with Gary, I'm wrong. I'm just wrong. I didn't see him turning it around. I never saw a way for him to remedy his inefficiencies in the paint. So now I have to go and study, what was it about Gary that I missed that turned him from 2022 Gary to 2023 Gary, or 2021 Tampa Gary to this? Like, what was it? Was it work ethic? Was it improperly seeing his age? Because sometimes I have to pinch myself to remind myself he's still 23. And there's so much growth that players can experience in those early, years before 25 that I sometimes forget, because he feels like he's been in the league for like 6 years, right? For whatever reason, he just does. He was a second-round pick, a little bit unheralded. He's been traded twice, went to Duke. Like, it just feels like I've known about Gary Trent Jr. since like I was a kid. But obviously, like, it's because he was highly touted as the son of an NBA player, and we heard a lot about him in high school. So it's just kind of weird. I have to remind myself he's a very young player. So I don't know. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's as these players like fall through and the floor falls from underneath them, hopefully what there can be is a meeting in the middle where I don't have to say, oh shit, I was right, and these people don't have to be aggressively wrong. It's just, we can just agree that it's just time to move on off of this as a talking point. I don't think Fred being an all-star is a talking point anymore. I think that bridge, that door is so closed like 8 months ago for me.
Yep. It's pretty funny to talk about looking at opinions that you were wrong about in the past. I actually have like a couple friends that interned with the Houston Rockets.
Awesome. Under Daryl Morey?
Yes. And
amazing.
That's exactly how they, like, that's the process. Like, people think it's about modeling for individual players, but a lot of it's like taking all this like qualitative data from scouts and looking at what they were good at predicting in the past, looking at the historical performance of these scouts and using that to project the accuracy of the current players, right? And that's kind of like that might be one of the reasons why like we're into Vision 6-9. Like, maybe like these are types of players that we're really good at projecting versus like, skinny point guards, right? Like, maybe that's the reason why we didn't like Cameron Payne,
Yeah, I mean, I get it. There's a sort of baseline archetype of players that we clearly chase after, the plus wingspan, like the +4, +6, wingspan. Vision 6-9 is a little bit diluted because in reality, almost none of these players that we're playing are actually 6'9". I don't know if people have realized that. OG's not 6'9", Pascal's 6'8" and 3/4. Scottie's 6'8" without shoes. Fred VanVleet is 6 foot barely. Lucky day, 6 foot. Gary Trent's 6'4". Where is Division 6'9"? Precious Achiuwa is 6'7". Chris Boucher is 6'9". That's pretty much the only player who fits in to that. And Christian Koloko is 7 feet. What is Vision 6'9"? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. There are players across the league that do fit into that archetype, and I guess maybe we can say, well, it's the concept of a guy between 6'6" and 6'9" who has a good wingspan. But then how does Fred VanVleet fit into that? How does Christian Koloko fit into that? How does Kem Birch fit into that? They don't, you know? So it's I get it. They're trying to build a certain model of a player type, and they don't want to draft guys like Desmond Bane because they think like they have T-Rex arms, they're going to be a liability on defense. But I think maybe a grand oversight. And I watched I watched the video. I read an article about how Masai fell in love with this concept of the long wingspan. Have you heard it?
No, I haven't.
So apparently he was at a Team USA practice, and it was coach Mike Krzyzewski, and he had Rudy Gay and maybe Kevin Durant and maybe Brandon Ingram, like some very long 6'80" guys. And they were all there. And Coach Krzyzewski had them all put their arms out and stretch the court. And if you've ever heard Masai talk about how Africa is full of Giannis's, you'll understand that this guy has a bit of a fixation about size. For whatever reason. It's just like he has this concept of a player, like a basketball player to him. Big hands, long arms. Like, that's just how he sees basketball. And that's okay. There are a lot of people out there that see basketball as a 6 foot guy who runs around and shoots threes, right? So like Nick Nurse does. So I thought that was very interesting that became the spark plug to him saying, this is the way we have to play. Everybody switch, everybody switch. And I guess I kind of get it, but then the big oversight here is how much wingspan and hand size impacts shooting.
I think here's the thing. Like, I think he always had that vision, right? Because I remember back when Brian Colangelo was their GM, and Masai was their assistant GM. He let Masai make a pick 1 year in the second round, and he ended up picking Solomon Alebi, and he fit in that mode as well.
Is that an unsubstantiated rumor?
No.
Really?
Like,
I mean, I could buy it because Solomon Alabi, A, went to Florida State, B, Masai had connections in Florida, so I could totally see that. I'm not going to make the whole obvious African thing because it feels oddly racist to me to consistently.
It was something that Brian talked about, mentoring Masai, but like it could be one of those like Brian things where you.
But that's really weird to me because I had a chance to meet Masai Ujiri like back when he was there. I've never met him since he took over as the GM or president of, but I got a chance to meet him like really early in his career once, and it was very interesting to talk with him and how strongly I felt about him as a scout. But it's very interesting to know if that Solomon Alabi pick was his, because I remember Solomon Alabi being like a player that I was like, this guy has no foot speed to thrive at this level. But I guess I get it. It's and you know what? It's a model he's been perfecting for a while. So for instance, like I'll give you an example. Like how do you project a college player's shooting percentage from 20 to 15 feet as a indicator that they'll eventually develop a 3-point shot, something like that. Well, I mean, free throws notwithstanding, like, I mean, talking in motion, how many self-generated 20 foot in to 15 foot shots. Because I remember hearing about Pascal Siakam when they drafted him, and that was one of the biggest indicators to them is how many long twos he made at New Mexico State, and how that projected forward for him eventually being able to develop a 3-point shot. And shooting potential has always been a huge thing with this team. Like, they like to take guys who are sort of nuanced, like developing shooters that have just enough of a package to become shooters, but they're not already shooters, because shooting is such a desired skill among draft prospects. Like, look at Benedict Mathurin and just basically Jabari Smith Jr. Like, look at the guys who were drafted at the top, a lot of them have pretty refined jump shots, and they're getting credited for it on the draft. So it's like, you work on Wall Street, so you'll understand market inefficiencies pretty well, right? So you might actually look at something like shooting being overvalued and you developing an entire process to coach people up on how to shoot as being a way to take these somewhat imperfect prospects and develop them into damn near perfect assets. And, to some extent, they have done it. Like, they've turned Precious Achiuwa, at least last year, they turned him into a 39% three-point shooter for the second half of the season. They've had very strong three-point shooting seasons from OG Anunoby. They've had strong shooting seasons from Pascal Siakam, and I have no doubt that they're going to have a strong shooting season from Scottie Barnes at some point. It's interesting to me that this team has chosen to consistently draft players who don't shoot well. And then the one time they do draft a guy who does shoot well in Malachi Flynn, he completely breaks the mold of every other thing that they wanted to do in the first place. I would be very curious to see when they draft a guy who can kind of, fill their physical profile needs, but also is already a decent shooter. Because I have always felt like shooting is not a skill that's as easy to develop as people think it is.
I think they believe that they can develop shooting, and that is their competitive advantage, right?
Yeah, but even as much as like Kawhi has developed his shot after, I don't think necessarily it'd be fair to say Kawhi was a non-shooter, but like I think there's an upper shelf limit. Shooters are shooters. Steph Curry was a great shooter. Klay Thompson's a great shooter. These guys didn't become great shooters at 24, 25 through workouts and reps and off season. That's how it's different. I'm going to dig into it at some point because I'm very curious about it, but I'm trying to think if there's an example. Does anyone know in the comments? We have a lot of people watching, 270 people watching at past midnight. That's awesome. Let me know in the comments. Can you think of anybody who wasn't a great shooter, got to the NBA and developed into a great shooter? And when I say great shooter, think like Reggie Miller level, maybe a notch below. Like Allen Houston.
Are you talking about specifically threes or just shooting in general?
Threes. Three-point shooting. Yeah.
For the Raptors?
Kyle says Dirk. I seem to recall Dirk being a pretty decent shooter coming into the NBA, dude. And he also came into the NBA at 18. Siakam. I hard disagree on that. I don't think Siakam's a great shooter. Jeremy Grant. That actually is a really good example, but I don't remember Jeremy Grant in college. That might have been a year where I didn't pay attention to college basketball. Yeah, Jeremy Grant is like shooting like 43% or something from three this year. Anyway, Alex, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing because I saw like a comment on here the other day comparing Fred with Lowry. Fred is not Lowry, okay? Lowry was already a good point guard when he got here, okay? He was not a scrub. That is just like Toronto media bullshit. Like, excuse my language.
Yeah.
Like tell that to the people on Clutch that Lowry was a bad player, okay? Like if you saw how he like developed and blossomed and won over the respect of Rick Adelman, you would not say that he's a bad point guard. Like, like people are just like going on Basketball Reference. They see the assist totals increase year after year, and they're like, "Oh, Toronto developed him." No, he became more mature. That's just it. Okay, like.
Yeah, I'm sure I've told this story before on this channel, but I was playing a pickup game when the Raptors traded for Kyle Lowry. And I was playing against this dude. We were at U of T, and we're just playing this game, and he checks his phone. And this was the summer that we were pursuing Steve Nash. And Nash, I believe, had just signed with the Lakers. So we were now on the market for a point guard, so we didn't have one. And he's like, oh, no, the Raptors just traded for this really random point guard from Houston. And I heard it just off shot, like off in the distance. And I heard it. I was like, what? Who did they trade for? They're like some guy from Houston. And I was like, please be Lowry, please be Lowry, please be Lowry, please be Lowry. I was just like, I was so like, please don't not be Lowry, because I thought he was such an underrated player, and I'm really happy we got him. And then he came here and he just seemed so freaking pissed about being here, and then he didn't want to be coming off the bench. And I just thought it was so clear that he was such a good player. He impacted winning in so many ways. He did all these small things that really help you win. And he had this prototypical body for a guy that you want at that size. Like something that could scale up, and not as a playoff go-to scorer, but like as a serviceable second, third option. And that's kind of where I saw him with that current core. So yeah, I agree. At no point have I felt as strongly about Fred VanVleet, not through the championship year, not through All-Star, as I did about Kyle Lowry the day we traded for him. Like, I obviously felt much better about him after that, but I'm just saying, like, the lowest I've ever been on Lowry is still higher than I've ever been on Fred.
Yep.
It's a big gap. Anyway, man, thanks a lot for calling in. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. It
Have a
was
happy
great
New
talking
Year.
to you. You too.
Likewise. See Alex. And we have our final caller, which is J5. J5, can you please use a headphone? I can hear myself in an echo.
Hello?
Yeah, J5, do you have headphones?
Oh, my fault. One sec. I'm gonna see here. Sorry, I'm just driving as well. My fault.
No worries.
One sec. I'm gonna pull over to the side just to see if it's better without headphones. One sec.
Okay. All right. To everyone out there, this is going to be our last call. I want to thank everyone for joining the chat, and I really appreciate the comment that we should try Vision 5.9 because no one's tried it. That's funny.
Sorry, is that better now?
Yeah, I can't hear myself, so that's perfect. Anyway, man, how are you doing? Thanks for calling. I'm glad you're not driving and talking at the same time. Thanks for being safe.
My fault. Sorry about that.
No worries. What did you think of the game tonight? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about, first of all, like, personally, I think, like, as Raptors fans, that we have to be honest with ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, what's our core? Like, this is also a question for you as well as, like, also Raptors fans. What's our core going forward in the next 3 to 5 years, realistically? You know what I mean?
Well, how do you define a core? Like 3 players, 2 players, building around 1 player? Like, what do you want? Like, I can ask the question in the chat. I think that'll be nice for the 260 people right now. Who is our core? Our core going forward. You want 3 players?
Personally, I would think the best is I would take 2 and a really solid like third player, like kind of like how we had. I wouldn't classify Kyle as like a second superstar, but he was probably the lowest tier of second superstar you could have on a championship team.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the Kyle thing is amplified because you had 3 of him. In a way, right? Like you had Gasol, and that's giving you all that value from another place on the court, you know, and then you have this like incredible depth, and you have Serge, and I mean, like Serge is not a superstar, but like he's a really serviceable 5th starter, and you got him coming off your bench. So I just think like you make up for some things sometimes, you know.
Yeah. No, I think like personally, if we're going forward, you have to say Scottie's going to be one of them for sure.
Yeah. So that's
realistically.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting in the comments. Scottie, Precious OG, Gary and Scottie, Precious OG. Let's see what other comments we got. Barnes, OG, Precious, Gary. You got 4.
Yeah.
OG, Barnes, Precious, Koloko, Scottie, OG, Koloko, OG and Siakam. We need a star point guard. I mean,
yeah. Personally,
wow.
I think we have to go off of we have to go off of history of our front office too, right? We were. How many times can you say we were aggressive in a trade and we went and really got somebody that's instant, like, okay, you know what I mean?
Kawhi,
I could
Gasol.
say 2 times. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. You know what I mean? Like, personally, I think Scottie, OG, and then if you're just rounding out the top 5 guys on our team, OG, Pascal, Fred, and realistically Fred and Gary, right? Those are the other than Scottie and OG. If you're gonna be realistic,
yeah, I mean, like, look, here's the thing. Like, I try to envision who Christian Koloko will be in 3 years, and I'm reminded of who Jermaine O'Neal was in year 1 in Portland. So that was one of my favorite teams to watch, and I remember watching him in practice back then, and I was like, oh man, like this guy, if he ever figures it out, he's gonna be pretty freaking special.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he gets traded to Indiana, and like overnight he's like a 21 point per game scorer, 22 points per game. It happens a lot, you know, like Drazen Petrovic getting traded from Portland to the Nets, like instant all-star.
Yeah.
There are a lot of guys who are just buried without opportunities, and it's difficult for us to envision. Like, it's probably difficult for me for most people to be like, okay, well, this guy's like, for us, someone like Jeff Dowtin, right? Jeff Dowtin doesn't get opportunities, but I think he makes a lot of his opportunities. Would it surprise me if next year somehow we let him go, he goes and starts in Miami and he's like borderline an all-star? Would that surprise me? Not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all. That's actually exactly what I would expect to happen. Like not maybe borderline all-star, but definitely like a top 25 point guard.
Yeah.
So it does happen. So I look at a guy like Precious, like, and I'm like, can he overcome how little feel for the game he has? Like how bad his decision making is? Because if he can be really special. Koloko, it's like the strength. With Scottie, it's sometimes like assertiveness and scoring aggression. And with OG, it's just putting it together in balance and hopefully in right time. With Gary, it's playmaking. You just have all these flawed players. And maybe the closest thing you have right now to a complete, de facto one of those three guys is Pascal,
Yes.
right? But
he's the most advanced out of obviously you could say right now out of all the players on our team.
As
He's
a
the most
scorer,
advanced. Yeah.
I think he's the most advanced. I think OG is the most advanced defender, and I think Scottie's the most advanced playmaker. That's just me. Now I know people are going to be like, "Well,
No, I agree.
Pascal makes like all these great passes," and I'm just like, not like Scottie, man. It's not.
No,
like
you gotta
Scottie.
watch that's the thing. Like when people watch the game, I want Raptors fans to watch the game, and I want you guys to say how many times are our players making the right plays. You know what I mean? Don't watch the outcome. A lot of times when people see a tough shot be made or a foul, you know what I mean? When Pascal's running into somebody, someone might be open in the far side corner because they're helping. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, was that really the right play? We're taking a 2. Don't get me wrong. Going to the free throw line and getting 10 free throws a game for yourself, if you're an individual player, that's efficient for you, right? To get your numbers up, get your contract. Pascal's chasing that. Was it 2 summers from now, I think, or next summer? So, like that's going to be another option. But I also want to say too, like quickly, there's 2 things with this in the game.
Sure.
Would you do I would personally say like the Hawks are somebody that I would try and tap into with the talent. And maybe if it goes wrong there, the draft picks that they would possibly have the value. Because think about the teams that are already tanking. Houston, Orlando, you're not going to get any draft picks from them realistically that are going to help you.
Sure.
OKC, you know what I mean? Like, we want to go get Shade. They're not going to give you their draft picks if they're going to still try to be tanking, realistically. So I think a team like the Hawks, you have to hope on maybe they fall out with Trey. Maybe DeJounte moves on after his contract and try and get those draft picks from now for someone like maybe AJ Griffin. I don't know their contract situation over there. Maybe AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, Bogdanovich. I know you're not big on Bogdanovich. I don't think so, but just to match contracts, you know what I mean? And maybe try and bank on a team that's not, right now they're in the middle of the ocean right now, but maybe they fall off a cliff. You know what I mean? Instead of
So I mean, like, I wonder if like there's a lot of teams in the past that maybe didn't have a de facto first option guy, right? Because those guys are hard to come by. I mean, we tried to get one in Kawhi, he left. We tried to get another one in Giannis, he didn't come, he stayed. Then we tried to get another one in Kevin Durant. I mean, have you known a single team in the league over the last 4 years that has been linked to 3 players in a very substantial way? By the way, there was like a lot of, like, I can prove definitively that we were trying to trade for Kevin Durant. Like, without question. Sure. I can prove definitively that we planned for Giannis and he didn't come. I can prove it. Like, every roster move that we made going into those seasons was with those guys in mind. Can you think of another team that has been linked to 3 players that impressive over the last 4 years?
Honestly, I mean, if we're being funny here, the Lakers, you know what I mean? Like you can't really name anybody else. I
mean, but have they been though? It's LeBron and AD. That's it. And, I mean, and they got them both. But I'm saying linked to in a very serious way.
Yeah, realistically, no.
No, right? Like, I mean, they got Russ. They're thinking about getting like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet to. They're not linked to Giannis. Like, so it's like, to me, it's like the writing on the wall is clear. This team internally acknowledges that Siakam is not a first option guy, right? So they need a guy who's better than him. And if they can't get it, they're going to elevate him to the point where they can maybe trade him for one of those guys, or they'll elevate one of these assets to the point where they can package a bunch of these assets, because this is what is a tried and proven thing. They've done it many times, right? Yeah. They did it with Kawhi, right? They took a homegrown asset, DeMar DeRozan, right? They took another homegrown asset, Jakob Poeltl. They flipped them, right? Yeah. So when your assets grow and you win a lot, the price of your players goes up too. And that makes sense. And I mean, it's a win-win, organization and player. That's a partnership, right? I'm going to make a deal with you, Fred. You become an all-star. You get paid like an all-star, and I can trade you like an all-star. Seems like a great deal, You know, I don't understand an organization that would want to handicap their player, make them worse. That's kind of what frustrates me about this whole Scottie situation. It's like, why are you playing him at center? I get that he's probably your best option at center right now, but he's also your best option at point guard, in my opinion.
No,
I
that's
would
the
play
thing.
him over
We
Fred.
don't, and like to get into like the Fred situation, because that's obviously like the main theme of the night. Like, I don't care what anybody says. The Toronto media can do, you know what I mean? Like, I seen personally my first game ever. Like, I'm not too old. I'm only 22. My first game was the game where Vince hit the game winner, but on his first, when he came back to Toronto. That was the first game I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And like from then, I feel like I was kind of. This is until I got older. I kind of said, okay, I became more of a Vince fan. You know what I mean? Because when I was younger, I used to hate Vince. Because when I grew up, it was right when he left. You know what I mean? So it was like, like I didn't really see Vince like how other people saw the star of Vince. You know? So it's like, I think we have to stop getting in on the younger guys. And obviously, you know what I mean? Fred today was unacceptable. You know what I mean? Like just to get into Fred, like personally, like I'm one of those people. I stand up at the TV and I watch. You know what I mean? Like I'm standing up in front of the TV.
Did you play ball? I'm kind of curious.
I played college basketball. Yeah, like
nice.
OCAA.
Like 12 people in the comments and they're totally wrong. I know that because I know Scottie's voice. They're like, this sounds like Scottie Barnes. This sounds like Scottie Barnes, and I'm like,
oh no, I'm from the Bees. I'm not sure if you're like from the GTA. I'm from Brampton.
Exactly. It's like Scottie's from West Palm Beach and he talks like it. And someone's like, it is Scottie. That's so stupid. Like, sorry. So I don't mean to be rude to the chat, bro, but like you gotta be kidding. Like you heard Scottie Barnes. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, like I think I agree with you on that. I was a big Vince fan, and then I became a really big Vince hater for like an entire half year.
Yeah.
And then I heard what happened from someone who actually knew what happened. And I never felt the same way about sports media ever again. In fact, I wanted to get into sports media because I heard about how they did him like that.
Yeah.
It's just how they twist this shit. It's so criminal, you know, and
but
they're
why
just finessing favors.
Exactly. But the thing is, it's like you have someone like Scottie, not every team. Why do you think teams covet players like that? Not every team has a Scottie. Every team, all other 29 teams in the NBA, if you ask them for Scottie Barnes, or
they give you 4 first-round picks and swaps and probably like a really good young prospect. People have no idea how much value this guy has around the league.
Like we have to keep it like people say like, oh, Toronto, you know what I mean? We're not realistic with what we have. You know what I mean? We overhype our players.
But
it's like when you get one of those players, you have to say, okay, we have to. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, like
guys a certain way.
Yeah, like teams employ actual scouts. You know, they pay these guys like thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't want to say hundreds of thousands of dollars because I have a couple of friends who are scouts for the NBA teams, and they are criminally underpaid for what they do. They're like, oh my God, people do not know how unglorious the life of an NBA scout can be for certain organizations. Like we're talking couch surfing level bad shit. We're talking about dental barely benefits, maybe $35,000 to $45,000 a year, and then maybe you get an upgrade. It's crazy. Like, but you know, you have your travel paid for and stuff, and you get to see the world, and you get to go to all these places, and it's interesting. And it's like teams have these scouts, and scouts are seeing what Scottie is, and they can see that. There's a reason why the conversation last offseason was Scottie Barnes, Kevin Durant. Like, should the Raptors do it? That was an actual conversation.
Yeah. You don't get those every year in the draft.
You don't. It was Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes. That's it. All these people talking about Franz Wagner. No, man. Like, the Orlando Magic could not have traded Franz fucking Wagner for Kevin Durant. I don't think they could have traded Franz Wagner for Ben Simmons this offseason. Like, there are levels to this, and the levels are steep. I think that's what maybe people don't understand. They'd be like, oh, Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham, the level's like this much. It's huge. At this point, you know, Cade is bombing. I mean, someone's saying Banchero over Scottie. I mean, Franz over Scottie and Banchero over. Yo, Yoda, you know, like you know, Mathurin over Scottie. Yo, are you high?
Yeah, nah. That's the
Ben
thing,
Mathurin. Wow,
bro. People don't realize that, like, when it comes to affecting a game for winning, there's a reason why certain guys like Luka, Jokic. I'm not saying Scottie's at that level yet, obviously, But when you talk about guys like Luka, Jokic, LeBron, right? We're talking about playmakers in the NBA, the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
People have to realize that there's certain guys that are watching their game, taking from their game, and seeing like, okay, we can, for example, we can implement Luka's passing in our offense through Scottie. You know what I mean? Sometimes we just have to put a really good shooter in that position. You know what I mean? Defenses are designed for certain guys to get certain shots, right? That's why they leave our guys open. Let's be honest here. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Precious Achiuwa the first half of last season was getting just out of point. Just guys were just standing in the paint. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we have to say, okay, how do we analyze this team to make the guys that are supposed to be our core, going back to circling all around, supposed to be our core, how do we maximize them for what they are right now? You know what I mean? And then we build ourselves up from there. For example, the draft, you might have to go out and get not a lottery pick, but for example, what did we trade last year? Our 19th pick. We might have to get something like that.
We traded 20. We traded 20 before we knew what 20 was to get down to 33, and then we swapped Goran Dragic plus a trade exception for Drew Eubanks and Thaddeus Young, and then we immediately waived Drew Eubanks, which is a mistake. I called it at the time. He's playing pretty well.
Why do we have so much faith in our front office's scouting team? Everybody says that our player development team is
let's put it this way.
But we don't want to get our hands on. But we don't want to. For some reason, we're fine with getting guys in 30 to 45, but we don't want to get our hands on 10 to 25. You know what I mean? It might be that.
No, I get what you're saying, and, I mean? Look, this year they liked Dyson Daniels. Don't ask me how I know, but I mean they liked him. In 2018, they loved Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They were dangling any player on this roster to get Shai. In 2013, they didn't like him enough, but they liked him a lot. Giannis Antetokounmpo. So if you're doing the math, that is like think about this. 2013, they like Giannis a lot. It's on record. It's proven. They spotted him, targeted him. They couldn't get him. Probably should have offered more. Maybe they should have offered DeMar. And had they known how good he was, maybe they would have. But honestly, I know from experience, like just hearing what people have talked about, like sometimes team gets a top 10 pick, they fall in love with a guy, they don't want to trade the picks, they don't want to look stupid, right? Their fan base is obsessed with. It's really difficult to get a team to get out of a top 10 pick, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. So sometimes you end up like chasing the middle, and there's all these competing offers, and you don't want to overpay either. So they liked Giannis, which was a hit, right? Had they gotten him, obviously this is a completely different trajectory. They scouted, properly on DeMar. Well, this is before Masai's time, but Masai was here, like when they were doing that, right? They knocked the ball out of the park with OG, with Pascal, with Jakob. Like they've hit on almost every single draft pick.
Even another name to throw out there that obviously I don't know if we were linked to him, but he went in Haliburton. He went in that range too, if I'm not mistaken.
Haliburton was definitely there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we were linked to him. I've never heard that, but I definitely heard that they were dangling anybody for Shai. Yeah. They were like, anyone on the roster is open. We just want a top 10 pick to draft this guy. He's a Canadian kid. We really love him. And they couldn't get him. And then they ended up going for Kawhi. But that's the thing. It's like you look at that and you're like, wow, like this organization can spot greatness. And then they go for Scottie Barnes over Jalen Suggs, which takes guts. It takes guts. Like, let's be real. Like, they got killed for that for like a good 3 months until Scottie shut him up. So I'm like, I love that this organization doesn't give into groupthink, because a lot of teams do. Like, I guess the reason that I like this organization and I trust this organization and this brain trust is because I follow a lot of other organizations, and I'm like, I can't think I would swap this organization's brain trust with another organization's brain trust unless it's Boston, maybe, or Utah. Like Danny Ainge is special, but like that's about it. Yeah. Like who else would I rather have running a team than Masai and Bobby? Who else has shown me over the last 10 years that they have that credibility record? I mean, we can all harp on maybe they're not aggressive enough and they're too patient, but what about a team that isn't patient enough? Like the Clippers, they gave away their entire future, and they gave away Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You know what the crazy thing is today? If they offered Kawhi and PG for Shai, they probably would get a no.
Yeah, I would definitely say no if I'm OKC's general manager.
So that's the thing. It's like that's asset management. So today OKC has all those freaking picks, and they wound up with the best player from that trade. No offense to Paul George and Kawhi. I like the idea and I like what they were doing, but they went all in on that because they were desperate. And I remember talking to someone in the know, and they were apprehensive about making the trade. And basically Kawhi held their he held their feet to the fire, and he said, "You're not getting me without him." And so they thought about it and they're like, okay, well, you know, this asking price for OKC is crazy. Like, it's a crazy haul. Like, they are asking me for the world because Sam Presti is a genius when it comes to milking people in desperate situations. And then, of course, how did Lawrence Frank present it to Steve Ballmer? He said, well, don't think about it as trading for Paul George. Think about it as trading for Paul George and Kawhi. And suddenly Kawhi is the best player in the world, and you're getting the best player in the world, but you're also getting a very flawed premise because anyone who watched the playoffs could see that guy broke down, right? He really broke down. Like, as the series went on, right around the Bucks series, he was wiped. He was not the same player against Golden State. And I think we are collectively as a fan base very lucky that he didn't break down sooner, because I don't think you get through the Philly series if he played like he did the rest of the way. And it's like, you're riding an all-time high in terms of momentum and brand recognition. And there was legitimate talk about, is Kawhi on the same level as Michael Jordan? Is he the closest thing we've seen to Michael Jordan? That was a real, legit narrative after he hit that shot. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
That's
funny
fucking
enough.
nuts. Huh?
You know, so sorry to cut you off, but
Sure.
you know what's funny enough? Game 5 of that series, I stood outside, right? I was in Jurassic Park for that game, and I said I have to go inside for Game 7 if it goes to 7, obviously. So I got tickets to Game 7. Funny enough, seeing the shot, and then actually coming out the arena, right? I seen Kawhi coming out, and it's funny, and you would have thought that, like, obviously we know Kawhi's not like the most like outgoing guy, you know what I mean? Like, not like the guy to type of have a smile on your face. But to see like the people, I'm one of those people. I don't watch, like, same like how I watch the games. I don't watch like the main, like kind of like the main event. I wasn't looking at Kawhi. I was just watching the people's faces around him. You know what I mean? And it's like the city. Like, I feel like personally, I see that in Scottie. You know what I mean? That's
Me
someone
too.
I see that in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not watching his face. I'm watching the people around him, how he's making them better. You know what I mean? Because that's what the top level guys and like I said, going back to Luka, Jokic, LeBron, you know what and I'm just saying those guys are the best of, that's the top of the top 3 in the world at what they do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I gotta tell you, J5, we've had like some incredible conversations on this show. This might be my favorite ever. I love some of the stuff you're saying is super cool. I hate the fact that the chat keeps saying that you're Scottie Barnes, because you're obviously not, but like it's so interesting, like some of the points that you're hitting on, because they are true and they require a lot of depth. And like, I'm shocked to hear you're 22. I'll be honest. Like, I'm shocked to hear that. Not because I don't think that 22-year-olds can be remarkably mature, because I think I was pretty mature at 22. It's just, it's unbelievable the depth of basketball insight and history that you're leaning on here. Like, you must love this sport.
well, I actually, like, I own a management company. Really, like,
that's crazy.
School, yeah, and I focused on music, right? Like, coming out of school, just because I had a couple artists that I worked with. But I'm trying to get into like athlete management too now. So I'm working on a couple athletes right now once they finish up their college season, you know, because I'm trying to really tap into that world, right? So
that's awesome. I mean, look, I have been around special people. Like, I think I have a pretty good understanding of like when I'm talking to someone who's like got something, and I think you have something here, sir. I don't know, like, if that is like, I don't know if that's motivational to you or just seems straight up strange that somebody is just saying that.
No, for sure. I wouldn't be calling in if I didn't, you know, respect your voice as much as, you know.
Yeah, no, I think it's super cool. And I got to tell you, like, there was a time when I called into hoops when I was way younger than you are, like 17 or something. And Kevin Pritchard, who was the general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, came on after me and kind of said like something very similar, like, how does a 17-year-old know so much about basketball? It's so crazy. And I got to tell you, that motivated me like hell to get into basketball. Like, it motivated me like crazy to get into basketball. So I was like, wow, if somebody that I actually respect thinks that much of me, like, that's a really big vote of confidence. So I don't know. But I always think about like, when I see that in young people, like, it's kind of crazy. It was very, very similar feeling that I had about Scottie when I think he was 16 years old at a Team USA camp, and they interviewed him for the first time. And he had this like unbelievably mature outlook, because a lot of young players, they're kind of like, they're all about themselves, you know, like, it's sort of an age to be okay. It's okay if you're all about yourself when you're 16. Most 16-year-olds are. And he was just so poised and remarkably like composed about his team, and he was so considerate of others. And I was just like, man, like with this guy's physical profile, he's going to be a superstar. And I don't know why I felt that way about him when he was 16, 17, but as I followed him throughout the years and I listened to the interviews that he did with Overtime Elite and all the stuff that he was doing, I was like, man, this guy's actually like a very special human being, and he's going to like, yeah, as you say, like, and Kawhi's the same way. I mean, when you think about Kawhi and his backstory, like everything that happened with his dad, his uncle, his mom, and stuff, and it's just like, man, some people are just they're like on another level as
Yeah.
human beings. You know, it's not just even about, and they do have a certain gravitas to them. You know, I can't imagine being in a room with Kawhi and the whole room isn't just like trying to like focus on what Kawhi's doing in a way too, you know,
Yeah.
like just like, and I can't even imagine being in a locker room with that guy and ever feeling like I was out of a series. You know what I mean? Like it almost feels like with him, you have a chance always. And that's the rare superstar intangible that I think people don't realize, is that when you have a guy like Kobe, if you have a guy like, you know, like that, I don't want to put Jokic on that tier because he hasn't really done shit in the playoffs yet, but
Yeah, sure.
Luka, you know, a guy like Luka, if I'm down like 30 points at halftime in a game 7 and I got Luka, I feel like I could still get this win if I try hard. I think this guy can bring me through, you know. That's belief. I feel the same way about Kobe. There's guys like that, you know, Kawhi. And I feel like, and I mean, this is not to throw shade on Pascal, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to say this is going to be shade on Pascal, but like, I feel like if I'm down 5 at halftime with Pascal on my team and he's my go-to guy, I don't really have a lot of confidence that I can make up the 5-point gap.
No, but that's the thing though. You shouldn't have to feel like it's shade or anything. Like I think like as Toronto media, we have, and I'm gonna say this, you're Toronto media as well. You know what I mean? Like
I'd like to think that I'm not, but I get why you say that I am. Yeah.
I consider you like I'd rather watch your videos than go watch, like, for example, like, this is no shade at, like, I'm not, and that's funny, I just contradicted myself. But
that's funny.
But this is, you know what I mean? Like, for example, Sportsnet, if they're to drop something on one of our players, you know what I mean? I'd rather watch your video, to be honest, because I know I'm gonna get a real outlook on it. But I think we need to start being honest with our players and say, okay, what do we really have here? You know what I mean? Like Pascal, how good? What's Pascal's ceiling? Is Pascal going to be a number 1 option on a championship team? Yes or no? You know what I mean? Like let's just be honest. You know, chat, be honest too. Is Pascal number 1 option on a championship team? Yes or no?
I feel like even his most ardent fans at some point have just admitted that no, he's not.
He's not, right? Okay, now let's go to Fred. Is Fred a 2, even a 3 option on a championship team? Be honest. Is Fred a 2 or 3 option on championship team? Because that's what we have.
Yeah, I'm hearing hell nah.
Exactly.
Someone said yes. Who said yes? No.
To each his own. You know what I mean? But
here's like, I want to address this comment right here, because somebody said, you know, Pascal won the chip, second highest scorer, WTF. Yo, Tonic, here's the thing. You could be the second highest scorer on a team and not be the second most important player on the team. Like, the two things can coexist, right?
Exactly.
Like, you could have a sniper, like a gunner. But let me tell you something. If you go and watch, like, the 2018, 2019 offense, you could have plugged in a ton of players in Pascal's place. There's not a ton of players that you could have plugged into place for Kawhi or Kyle or Mark. And I'm telling you, if you understand basketball, you understand that he was probably the 3rd or 4th most important player on that team, give or take how you feel about Marc Gasol's defense. Like, I'm not gonna say that, you know, Pascal was less important than Serge. Of course, he was more important than Serge Ibaka. He was definitely more important than Fred VanVleet and Danny Green. But there's a definitive pecking order there for me where I put Kawhi and at least Kyle Lowry above him. Like, you are not going to tell me that, like, Pascal Siakam was better than Kyle Lowry for that team through. Like, it just, playmaking is a thing. Like, all those little things that don't show up, like, just because a guy scores 21 points and, you know, he boosts his average all those games that Kawhi sat out, it doesn't mean that he's the second most important player. It certainly doesn't mean he's your second option. Just means your second highest scorer. I don't know how to explain that. It's like when people say that, like, okay, I'm kind of curious, J5, who are the 2 players you would most attribute the Warriors dynasty to?
Personally, I think it's obviously Steph. That's you know, and then I mean, if we're talking about total team style of play, it's Draymond.
Thank
If
you.
you're talking about just maybe like being like a consistent, you know what I mean? You know, Clay's gonna give you 20 to 22 on a good night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's Clay. But I think if you're talking about just how a team like runs and plays, it has to be Draymond for sure.
Exactly, and I think there's times when Draymond's been the 6th leading scorer on that team, 7th leading scorer on that team, but there's no way that you can replace what he does. Like, you can try, but you can't, because there's not a single defender in the NBA who can switch the way he does and also run an offense. Like, he was a one of one for me. Like, unless you would on low volume, because on high volume you have a couple of those guys. Like, you have LeBron, you know. And people trip out if you compare Draymond to LeBron James, because that sounds like I'm crazy. But in a lot of ways, if you take like the scoring element out of LeBron's game and you're like, wow, how do they see the court? How do they push the pace? How do they impact, their teammates on defense and offense? And how do they unlock all these little advantages that no one else sees? And it's like, yeah, that's exactly how LeBron plays. That's exactly how Jokic plays.
And what's the common denominator between Draymond, LeBron, and people would say Scottie falls into that category too?
Playmaking.
Playmaking, and how do they see an offense? You know what I mean? How can offense be efficient? What's going on the left side of the court? What's going on the right side of the court? Who's in the dunker spot? Seeing the court. You know what I mean? Like, that's what
absolutely.
That's the trait that they hold. And if you look at, for example, that's winning basketball. How many championships is that in the last decade between LeBron and Draymond compared to all the other superstars that are ball dominant? You know what I mean? The other superstars that are you could say LeBron's slacked on defense for how long now, but LeBron,
it's been about a decade.
Championship, no one complains about his defense, so it must be working.
I mean, like championships pacify everything. They like cloak everything. So does winning. You win 55 games. If right now the Raptors are like 5-6 games over 500, no one's talking about Fred VanVleet shooting slump. No one's talking about Scottie Barnes' second year slump. They're just saying, oh, these guys are sacrificing for winning. But suddenly, you lose a game and things are going off the rails. And it's like, well, actually, it's not that different to lose games and win games. I mean, on average, the scoring differential between a win and a loss is like sometimes 3 points. So if you're consistently shooting 27% from 3, that's just one more 3 made, and you probably win half these games. So it's really razor thin. Like, I mean, I guess maybe as the scoring averages go up across the league and offensive ratings go up, like, you could say that the differential it adjusts, but always on a scale where like it's always going to adjust to the percentage of like it's going to be 1% more points could have gotten you a win on half the losses. And so it's like, okay, well, sometimes that's just shooting luck, sometimes it's just injury luck. And maybe sometimes it's just play style, consistently delivering the worst brand of offense. But anyways, man, this is, thanks a lot for calling in, J5. I really appreciate it. Please feel free to call again. This was a fantastic chat.
Sure.
Yeah, man. Do you have any final words?
No, I just want the theme to be like, let's be real. You know what I mean? Like,
let's be real. Well, you definitely came to the right place. What's
Fred saying? Like, I don't care what no one says. You know what I mean? Get at me about Fred. I want him personally. This is what I'm gonna say about Fred. Last thing, and I'm gonna leave. You know what I mean? This is what I have to say about Fred. Fred at his best role. Let's be honest here. He is a 6th or 7th man player on a championship team that can come in and destroy the second team. You know what I mean? The backups. You know what I mean? Let's be honest here. You put Fred against backups, he's supposed to win every night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's Fred at his best. And you have a lead guard. He doesn't have to be a John Morant. He doesn't have to be. It could be someone like, Kyle was not the best guard in the league. You know what I mean? Kyle was in that maybe 2nd or 3rd tier of point guards, probably 2nd tier of point guards that you would have. You know,
I feel like Kyle was really real about himself. Like, he was really over himself to the point where he didn't need to have like all this. He didn't need to have the load. He didn't need to have, like, I'm sure he wanted to get paid. No shit. Like, he made no secrets about that. I mean, there was one time where he almost left to go to San Antonio, even though he had less money there. I don't know why. And that was very real. Like, he almost left.
Exactly, but that's the thing. We have to say, let's be real. Other cities have this culture where, You know what I mean? Let's Toronto, let's be real with ourselves. Let's not be like New York and think we're gonna get a superstar every year in the offseason. Let's not be a, you know what I mean? Let's not be at LA and be chasing.
Yeah, well, obviously it was
I
a
agree.
bit of a roller coaster game, right?
Log off. I'm trying to go home still.
Oh shit! Sorry, I
You're good,
accidentally removed you and put Nick Nurse on the thing. We're gonna watch the post game right now of Nick Nurse. But thanks a lot for calling in, man. I really appreciate it. And drive safe and Happy New Year. And again, thank you so much for calling in. I can't tell you how much like I really appreciate this community's depth of insights. Like someone once questioned like why don't you just talk? Why do you have these people who don't know basketball calling in? I'm like, man, have you listened to the people who call in? Like we've had Olympic coaches, Olympic athletes. We have like, you know, people like you, aspiring entrepreneurs who play basketball in college. Like it's such a cool community full of people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about. It's awesome.
For sure. And just the last thing, I'm gone for real. Everyone, you know what I mean? Just a little plug in, you know, Loading Entertainment on Instagram. You know, we're a music label out of Brampton, and we also do athlete management now. And
cool.
We have a food page called
what's it called? Loading Entertainment?
Yes, Loading Entertainment. Like my favorite player is D'Angelo Russell of all time. No one judge me. You know what I mean? That's my favorite player. But
cool.
Yeah, Loading Entertainment, just like D-Lo. Loading Entertainment.
I hope I spelled it. Is there any specificity on the spelling? It's just exactly how it sounds.
Yeah, LOADING and then entertainment. You know.
Okay, so it's exactly how it sounds. Okay, I put it in the chat for anyone who wants to follow you. They can do that there. That's cool. All right, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Drive safe.
For sure.
Cheers, man. All right, that was awesome. Okay, let's hear from Nick Nurse, and I will lose my mind on screen. I downloaded this video while the last caller was talking. So
start like you said at the half, they had a big run there with about the last 7 minutes of the half.
I bet
a lot of what you said, they got out in transition, they got on the glass a little bit too much for us. And then we kind of got all that stuff under control in the second half. I thought it was a little bit unfortunate because we guarded, I thought, really hard and really well, and they made a lot of really tough shots, and we just couldn't quite trade back with them. We were getting some good shots down there, didn't quite make enough of maybe a little better quality shots maybe than they were even getting, and that was really the story of the night. Yeah.
But what you make of the level of chippiness or aggression? Is that something that you like to see from your guys in this one? Because I know it got a little heated out there.
Well, it was, I think, again, both teams were playing pretty hard. And I don't think there was a lot in that, right? I think there was two teams really fighting, competing to win. I mean, geez, bodies were flying and loose balls were active and lots of bodies on the floor and all that kind of stuff. I think it was just really good, strong competition by both teams.
Second night that Gary has been playing pretty well. What did you see from him?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought we were doing a good job, a really good job at times in the game, and especially early on of getting it in and getting it out, right, and really making the right plays. And he was, the beneficiary of a bunch of that early. And then he, like he does, he created some of his own baskets as well. But yeah, he's looking really confident right now out there as a scorer, and I really liked his aggressiveness on defense too. He had a bunch of, again, a little bit unlucky moment. He got his hands on a ton of balls and didn't recover a couple, and also I thought he had a couple strips that he got called for fouls on too that I thought were good defensive plays by him.
And then what did you make of Fred and especially Precious tonight?
Well, Fred, I thought he played really good defensively. He switched.
No, he didn't just say that. Did he say that? Am I losing my mind? He said that. Did he really say that? I need to go back. Sorry, I need to hear that.
I thought he played really good defensively.
Oh no, he said it again. I'm sorry, I'm speechless. Wow. Okay, hold on. I want to confirm that he really said it.
Well, Fred, I thought he played really good defensively. He switched over onto Haliburton there, and pretty much in the second half, and pretty much took care of, did a really good job on him. Obviously, he didn't shoot it well. And Precious, his first stint was a little shaky, but his second one was really good. He was really active and playing D and on the glass, and it was good to see. I thought he played with great energy, and it was good to see him out there again.
Bro, I'm gonna have to do a low light film on Nick Nurse. Like, is he serious? Is that what he actually thought? Is that genuine? Oh my God. All right. Well, I will leave you a final note for tonight. Nick Nurse is a Victor Wembanyama fan. I can tell. For sure. I wish I had a Victor Wembanyama mixtape that I could just play for all of us so we could feel a little bit better, that conversation that we had about like the core going forward. For me, it's difficult for me to put guys who are fringe NBA prospects into a core. Obviously, I have a lot of high expectations for Precious and Koloko. I don't know if I see those guys as part of a core, but I definitely see them as valuable pieces going forward in the modern NBA. In terms of a core, I think OG, Scottie, and TBD. TBD being if you tank correctly the right way, whoever you draft. And the Raptors have shown me in years past and shown all of us that they are very good at drafting. And it's almost a tragedy that they've been as good as they've been and have traded away as many first round picks as they have to be good, because you just think, I know there's a critical mass to this where at some point you lose so much and you're like, I don't know, man. Like, do I even care about these draft picks anymore because they keep losing so much? But I think it's important to get like a really solid young talent base that's exciting. Key. Very, very important. Basketball is basketball, but it's also entertainment. And I do not find anything entertaining about watching Fred VanVleet dribble up and down the court, like with his head cut off, and make, absolutely reject the opportunity to make passes that my 5-year-old nephew can make in whatever league he plays in. They travel in that league, but I still see like more vision in passing. Okay, I'm being straight. Like I don't know. Anyway. All right. This has been a fun stream. We're at 3 hours and this is the first stream of the year. And those of you who did not catch it, there was a video that dropped earlier. Please go and check that out. It's hilarious. Bear with it. It's funny too. I think it's funny, especially if you get 90s references. And if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and you know who Scott Hall is and Scott Pilgrim, it's going to make you laugh straight up. To those, I mean, I guess I can respond to some of these chat comments. Good night. I gotta sleep. All right. Me too. I guess, yeah. Happy New Year's and thank you all for sticking with us. And yeah, let's keep these live, streams going, and hopefully the wins start to pile up and we can stop wasting these really good performances from some of your young players. But you know what? I mean, it's encouraging, right? I mean, look at what Gary Trent Jr. is doing. Look at what Scottie Barnes is doing. I mean, we certainly felt a lot more bearish about the future when these guys were putting up like terrible performances like a month ago, right? So let's rejoice on that. Hopefully Jeff Dowtin Jr. gets into the game. Free Jeff Dowtin. And yeah, thank you all for checking this out. And if you can, please, when I click end broadcast, just click like, or maybe before that, click like and just leave a comment. Maybe let me know your big three. Like let me know the 3 core players that you'd like to build around. Free Jeff Dowtin. Love it. Let that be the last one for the day. All right, cheers. Have a good night, guys.